I'll call the City Council work session to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Felder. Here. Whitman. Here. Steelgrave. Here. Vining. Germaini. Here. Lamore. Present. Mayor Clark.
Present. So this evening, since we have some visitors here tonight, we start with the work session. Our regular City Council meeting will be at 7:30, but with this, for our work session, we have 4 items, and our city manager is here, David Robinson, and so we have some items in the order. And city manager, any openings, or if not, we can move to the agenda.
Yes, Your Honor, the council.
Oh.
As you know, the DDA provides an annual update. I have to hit the button. The DDA gives up an annual report, and we have them here today to be able to give us that update.
Very good. First item is the DDA information session, and I see Amy Zarin going to speak with us.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for having me tonight. So I am Amy Zarin. I am the newly hired Economic Development and Authorities Coordinator. As one of my roles with this position is to be the liaison with the city, between the city and the DDA. And so what I've got for you tonight, in my 5 weeks in this position, is the annual report. So kind of looking back on all that has been done in the last year, and then I do have some exciting potential for what we'll be looking at in the new fiscal year as well. So I do have a presentation which we'll forward out to you if you're interested at the end. But much of what has taken place in this last year regarding the DDA, with a number of major highlights just having taken place, honestly, in the last 2 months. And it's an exciting time to be part of the downtown and the economic development, as each success really leads us to increased and improved engagement from city residents, local business owners, potential investors, and developers. And as I step into this new role, I have vision and a passion for this work, and I'm really looking ahead to increased connection and collaboration to make the city of Monroe a true destination and a place we can all proudly call home. So without reading everything to you, we do have the DDA board mission up here. Some things I really want to highlight in the mission are that, we provide direction and resources to businesses, property owners, and residents, as well as doing promotion of businesses and redevelopment opportunities. We're really being connected and collaborative in all areas that we work in with any of the projects that we undertake. Our vision. Very, very long vision. But some of the highlights in our vision is really that we would like to have this as a walkable downtown, that spaces are all occupied, people are able to shop and dine locally, that it's a place for residents of all ages, that shopping and an entertainment district with an active nightlife are all possible. We want to preserve the historic downtown buildings, and we're working on making improvements to things like the facades. Empty lots and underused properties will be revitalized. We'll be creating jobs and places to live. We'll be welcoming to pedestrians and other non-motorized modes of transportation. And really the overarching theme in this vision is connection, connection, connection. Should have moved that ahead, sorry. The updated strategic plan, which was developed in 2022, aligns and synchronizes efforts within the downtown master plan as well. So they really are aligned very, very nicely. I don't want to read all 7 to you, but I have the first 4 here on this screen, and then the second screen. But what they really do is highlight the efforts that all of us are working together in unique and innovative ways for the betterment of our downtown. So one of the things that I've recently had to learn, of course, is about TIF funding. So I'm sure you guys are all experts on this, right? So tax increment financing is how the DDA is supported. And so every year for transparency, through Act 51 of 2018, we really need to provide some information to give you guys some background and some financials. So that is what the next couple of slides will be. Our base year for the creation of our TIF was 1977, and the base year value for that was just over 15 million. Our fiscal year does align with the city, so we are currently wrapping up our 2022-23 fiscal year and are preparing for 23-24. And at the bottom, I've put a footnote for you, and this really is the for compliance with the act and transparency. And I can share the following details that are coming, but just know that the final numbers for us are actually due at the end of June, and so we won't have final numbers until then, and the final report to the state is actually due by December 31st, so that we'll be able to give you comprehensive numbers at that time with regard to revenue and expenditures. So this is some of the other information that is required for compliance. So the captured value with the TIF funding last year was over 9 million. Our current fund balance is $486,981 and some change. Some of the projects that we've obligated money for thus far, $100,000 for the MLK Bridge lighting improvements, $100,000 to the traffic conversion project, and we have a couple of contracts that are outstanding on some projects right now. Jim Jacobs, we're working on the Monroe Optical at 13 West Front. Probably all of you are familiar with that property. And then with Manick & Smith regarding a Pocket Park project that we're working on between the RRCA and the museum. We did take out a bond. I don't honestly know what year that was, but that was for the parking lot on the south side of the river across from St. Mary's Park. And the information regarding the bond debt is on the screen right now. So some of the highlights, this is my favorite part that I wanted to share with you. Some of the highlights that the DDA has really had this year, they are many. First one being the big purchase of 13 West Front Street, which is the Monroe Optical Building, and that will be worked on for redevelopment. Recently in May, we installed 2 EV charging stations with 4 ports for powering 4 parking spaces right along the river. We installed just, I think it was last week, 20 previously purchased bike racks. Those are going out throughout the city. And if you have seen them, which I'm going to show you on a screen here, they're very artistic. They are not like your typical bike rack. We purchased new pole banner arms and 60 banners last year for display. And these are the new bike racks. So not typically what you would expect. They kind of have an artistic look about them. I'm already thinking ahead to how we can enhance those since they're bike racks, adding a second one kind of offset behind it to make it look like it is a bike in motion. Adds a little artistic feel downtown as well. So they are very unique, but those are all installed thanks to our DPS as of last week. We installed winter and summer seasonal decorations in downtown planters. I have a picture of our most current one up here right now, but I believe there are about 32 of those throughout downtown. We installed connector lighting above the pedestrian walkway near the city parking lot, and you can see a picture of that down to the right. There will be some landscaping that goes along with that as well. We committed recently $500 to the Monroe County Fair to sponsor the fair, and that will help us to raise awareness and interest in downtown Monroe. And we just began planning for a pocket park between the RRCA and the Monroe Museum, as I mentioned, with a newly convened committee of partners that really we're going to be helping to implement the Heart of Monroe plan. We also contributed $100,000 to the traffic conversion project being facilitated by the City Engineering Department on First and Front Streets, and that is currently underway. We supported improvements to 39 South Monroe Street, which is the former McGady's building, through the BIG grant. We committed $100,000 to the MLK pedestrian bridge, as I just mentioned. So one of the things, and one of the best ways to reach people is social media. So social media, of course, has its great and its bad points, but social media is our best way to engage with our residents. So how we let people know what we're doing and how to engage with them specifically is through Facebook. This also helps residents to develop a sense of ownership and pride and where they live, and as evidenced by the metrics that I'm going to be showing you here shortly. It's definitely working. So the number of followers we have currently, 6,134 as of May 20th. Last year, about this time, we were at about 5,200, so we've definitely had an increase there. Since May 8th, which we started the DDA transition, we're up about 108. We have new likes, which is important, which is about 79, which is a 508% increase. And I want to give quick thanks to our new communication department staff member, Amy, another Amy, for helping me get this information and compile this information earlier today. Followers, you can see the division between men and women, and our reach really has extended. Just since May 8th, we've had 56,000 plus individuals interact with our pages. And that is up 655% since our previous quarter. So as expected, posts with images and videos, of course, those get the most attention. June 9th, I think, was our most popular post in recent history. And what people liked about it was that we were sharing all that is taking place downtown. Some of the most positive comments we've received were because there's so much taking place, and residents were very, very positive. So they're happy to see what's going on taking place, not just with our work, but with the other partners as well. With our social media, and again, as I mentioned, the expansion of the communications department, together we're really utilizing and benefiting from the experience and expertise that's right here within our city team. We've scheduled weekly planning meetings with our social media content team, so that includes the communications, two individuals from communications, myself, and then Amy Mason from Parks and Rec. And really the reason we're doing that is to coordinate for maximum impact and engagement. We will have ongoing and enhanced engagement and partnership with Impact, as they'll soon be moving into the third floor, right above us. We do have some areas of opportunity and some things that we have talked about within our group. So the development of the Pocket Park, as I've mentioned a couple times, we've had a pre-meeting, I'll say. We have our kickoff meeting tomorrow. And what we'll really be doing is looking at working on this project in phases. This will help for funding availability as well as coordination with other city projects. Things like concrete work, which I know Patrick Lewis is already working on. When we have that team down here downtown, it makes sense to kind of partner with them and utilize the same resources. So we'll be able to get a nice foundation set for this park before the end of this year, actually. The other one is support for improvements to Altrusa Park. I don't know, most of you hopefully have seen the flyer that we're getting to the Finally Fridays events that the Parks and Rec Department is putting on. And so some of the things that we want to look at for this park as improvements are a potential walkway from Front Street, from the sidewalk to the Riverwalk, increased lighting for safety, the renovation and upgrade of the stage area, and improved seating. And again, all of this would be in collaboration with our Parks and Rec Department because they really are scheduling, a number of great activities downtown. So we want to utilize this park a little bit more as well. And so that is everything that I have for you. I just wanted to share what we have done and what we are looking at doing going forward. We have, some budget. Our new budget is going to be taking effect here soon, so we'll have some new projects in play, but hopefully you guys are happy with what we're doing and looking forward to more development downtown. Does anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Amy. I'll see if the council members have any questions. Brian?
Yeah, I'm just going back to the bond on the parking lot,
Mhm.
the newer parking lot. Are you familiar with all of the background with that as far as, my understanding is we cannot pay that bond off early. It has to continue through it. I'm not sure if that would be the proper person to talk about that. Because we had some other plans we were thinking about in that lot, but we were unable to do those because we weren't unable to pay it off early.
Right.
Is that correct in stating that?
I am not sure, but I will look back and see if Ed, Mark, do you have that information?
We can look into it.
Okay.
I don't know the answer tonight either, but we'll look into it.
Okay.
Yeah. Certainly.
Brian, I do recall there was some conversation about how can the bond be paid off at once, and I think it's,
I think that's go to maturity.
yeah, that's my understanding as well, but we'll look into it.
Okay. I had another question regarding improvements to McGee's. What exactly did we do there?
That was before my time as well, so let me. Okay.
There were some exterior work improvements that were done, I know. There was some wiring that was hanging down. We helped paint the building as well. There were some sign improvements, and so most of it was exterior, all of it was exterior work.
This is currently owned by
Oh, I knew you were,
Lackey.
yes, thank you.
I
Yep,
just wanted to make sure, did they put any money into this? Was there a match on this?
yes, there was, yep.
All right, and then also, last question, regarding the pocket park in between the RRCA and the museum.
Yes.
That's currently being used for parking. What kind of, do we have any handicap access currently in there that we are gonna lose because we are considering this pocket park or anything like that?
No, so there was a redesign done. We have a proposed redesign, I should say, so in multiple phases. And the handicap accessibility is still would still be available. There could potentially, again, nothing is solid. It could entail the movement of the ramp, but the ramp would still be there for access, handicap parking. It is currently used as parking, those parking spaces. With the reconfiguration, there would be parking along the back alley. So.
Put my mic on. The next question regarding the handicap access, I was unaware of this until somebody in our audience made me aware of this. There's a difference between handicap parking and I believe it's wheelchair-bound handicap parking. Ramp parking, thank you. Okay, and you're saying that one spot that is there is ramp parking only?
So
or
I will have to confirm that. I have the drawing with me. I don't know if that is specified, however.
Well, regardless of that, I think it's perfect time to kind of add that into the research. Just to find out specifically how many spots we have in the city for ramp parking.
Ramp parking, okay.
Because I was unaware that there was a difference between handicap and ramp parking, and she made me aware of this.
Yep.
And I think it's a solid idea to have more of that available for those people that cannot access the parking because a handicapped person is parked there, not a ramp
Wheelchair,
parking
yes. Yep.
person.
That makes perfect sense. So that is something I can take to the committee that's meeting tomorrow and we can discuss that. Absolutely. So it's the perfect time to do so.
So Brian, you see, if Patrick was here, of course, he would have some additional, but
Yeah.
I know that when you look at handicap parking, just as you said, it's a space for those that have a handicap sticker can park. When you talk about other needs, it's a wider space. It requires opening of both of a van and those access. So they're much larger spaces. We have some of those in the city, but regarding the project with the museum in discussion was, the spaces are currently the spaces of the museum, both the ones that go between that and the RCA and the spaces that are directly next to those. So that's the museum's property. But there's additional, just as Amy said, that we're looking at, I know there's several people here that know about the heart of Monroe because it was a great project of where it's going to go. But, you can start toward where it goes from Front Street all the way to Third. But there's an opportunity here to start at that end. And then part of that also is the access to the city's parking lot and how we configure that. And then there's the historical museum, the Monroe County Historical Society, which has the Johnson Finney House, and their parking access comes off the alley as well. And that should be reconfigured, and we've talked to them a long time ago about making that access off of 2nd Street, so you don't have to go through the alley. The idea is to not eliminate, but to minimize the use of vehicles in the alleyway, but also, maximize the use for that, whether it be a handicap or greater handicap needs. I know that there's, I'll have to look at the city lot there to see what that is as well. The idea is to try to make it reconfigured so it's safer and moves along. It's not the entire plan because we knew that years ago at the heart of Monroe, that it's, the bigger lift is toward Front Street, and the bigger lift is about some infrastructure and other things underneath. But your comments are well taken. I think that when we look at the plan to see what that might be, and we'll have to talk to the museum as far as the current spaces, what they may have in because they obviously are going to be removing them, as I understand, but they still have spaces as you're looking to the back of the building to the right. And I believe one of those is handicapped, but I don't believe it's accessible as you say, and we'll look into that. Thanks, Amy. Any other questions for Amy? Oh, Andrew.
Yeah. Could you get us a copy, as we're talking about the design and layout of this new project of that little pocket park, so that we can, I'm just struggling to visualize sort of what's being proposed.
And nothing has been finalized yet, so this is just, we're looking at doing it in phases. This is a concept drawing, I'll say that. Okay.
Thank you so much.
It's a draft concept, and I think there's already been some modifications to it, but at least gives you an idea where they started. And then, and part of it is, you can get a concept from a architect and it's going to be everything. And then you realize that what you can put there and how you put it and what you want the uses for, as Amy said. So I don't have the updated version. I'm not sure if it's on tomorrow's meeting for an update. I think there might be conversation, but not an update. But they have done some preliminary, we'll give you the concept and then we'll see what the, knowing that there's a new rendering.
We'll take the understanding.
Yeah,
of
it's
everything
coming out
subject to
different
change.
later. Yeah, absolutely.
Tomorrow. So, okay, thank you.
All right, there's other comments. Thanks, Amy. And Mr. Robinson, I see we have the public art ordinance policy next. I see Mr. Vanasacker is stepping forward, so I'm assuming he's doing the presentation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. Matt Vanasacker, Deputy Director of Economic and Community Development and Neighborhood Services Coordinator for the City of Monroe. Here today to talk about two distinct issues. They're back to back on the agenda, so I'll stay up here for a little bit. But first and foremost, a public art policy. It's something that has come up fairly recently, and it's something that we are, as staff, looking for a little bit of guidance from council on which direction you'd like to go with some of these. We get numerous requests to do public art in the city, and I think some of the key factors that we want to consider, and I'll get into those along the lines, but just a little bit of history on the topic, the relevancy as of late. Obviously, 2022, the Planting Seeds program started. Obviously, those are mural installations on the side of buildings and the like. At the time, there was a licensing agreement that was put into place between the City of Monroe and the building owners for the project, and that continues on to this day. 2023, obviously, we're moving into program year 2. Mark, I believe, presented at one of the April meetings a portfolio of the artists, which is something that City Council had requested to see. And it really kind of, I think, sparked this conversation about coming up with an official policy regarding public art. And I can say, too, we've received a number of requests recently, and also some requests to just provide some sort of policy or guidelines. There's, very creative folks that we have here in this community, and they're very interested in partaking in the arts. So key items for your consideration. Obviously, first and foremost, the process for which we evaluate public art, the safety of artworks. Obviously, we want to make sure that the citizens are safe, and also the maintenance of pieces of art, making sure that they're staying in a state of quality repair, and that they're not falling into disarray. So a few of the key objectives, and this is just, I want to stress that this is just kind of a draft of what we've been putting together. We received some really great comments from the DMBN. They have been interested in putting a mural up in the downtown area, and they had suggested some items on policy, and we were able to review those, compare it up against a few of our other neighboring municipalities to see what they have, and that's really what kind of sparked this proposed language. So obviously, objectives to establish uniform and clear guidelines, ensure the safe and appropriate display of works of art, ensure appropriate recognition of the artists and the art itself, if it has a title or a name, etc. And then also to ensure the proper and perpetual maintenance. And I think sustainability is a key word here to think about. Obviously, we've all seen works of art that have went up, and maybe a form of paint was used that we knew was going to kind of deteriorate over time. Is there a way where we could step in and kind of help ensure that these, stay vibrant for a certain period of time? Just a few definitions that we kind of include with standard policy and as well with our ordinances, as you'll see in the next kind of topic of discussion. But really, what I want to focus on, are first and foremost murals, and then also sculptures. I believe the River Raisin National Battlefield Park is slated to receive a sculpture here shortly, and they were looking for some guidance on whereabouts on the property would be sufficient to place this and the like. So definitely for the purposes of this discussion, those are both important. So within proposed policy, we're proposing an application, that would be submitted to the Planning Commission on Laserfiche forms, which is kind of the standard practice that we're utilizing now here at the city. That application includes a number of things that would help really give us, some solid footing for the placement of these works. Obviously, a narrative of the proposal, maintenance and sustainability plan, as I touched on before, a drawing model, kind of photograph of a proposal for what something could look like. The artist's resume, 3 proposed references. That was drawn, I believe, from Royal Oak's policy regarding public art. Project budget, specific materials used. I think I noted that a bit earlier as well. And then also a letter of support from the property owner. We want to make sure that these works are being done with the consent of the property owner and making sure that that property owner is heavily involved in the process. The next part, kind of the review criteria that the Planning Commission could use. It should be safe for the public. Obviously, if there's a sculpture, we don't want, pointy objects, sticking out that someone could run into. Want to make sure that if it's a mural sign or the like, it's not going to fall off the wall, right, and fall onto someone. So safety, first and foremost, the utmost priority. Hoping that it can enhance the cultural and visual aesthetic of the city. Appropriate for the proposed site and surroundings. And I mention that because, and I have it listed later, but there are, especially within the downtown area, state historic and federal historic district criteria that have to be abided by in some of these cases, especially if the brick has been untouched on the side of one of the buildings. Project should not adversely affect the natural environment of the site. So, say if a sculpture is being installed, obviously we don't want to disrupt or disturb any of the soil below if it's contaminated or the like. Project should provide public accessibility in compliance with ADA requirements. We want to make sure that art is available to all. We want to make sure that people are able to access and view it in whatever way that they are able. Should meet the requirements of the zoning district. So a lot of, just depending on whichever zoning district it's in, there's certain requirements, and that's more so on the sculpture side of things, where things can be placed. Obviously, you can't have something too close to the side of a building. We have certain accessory structure criteria that we follow. Maintenance and sustainability plan, talked about that. Appropriate recognition to the art and the artist, compliance with all codes, and then also the costs, making sure that the costs, are evaluated and making sure that everything is situated. A couple other requirements of things that have come up recently that we want to make sure we're able to address in this policy. Property owner be required to pull a building permit for sculptures and affixed murals. That kind of touches back to that zoning kind of request. And a work of art shall not represent or contain depictions of the likeness of an actual living or deceased person. That's kind of a standard policy we've been using on the licensing agreements for the murals to this point. Deaccession. This is, really, I think, when an item falls into disrepair, are we able to step in? Similar, kind of to a blight situation where a property becomes blighted, are we able to step in and kind of influence that decision? And so in this proposed policy, we leave that discretion to the city manager. Obviously, it can be appealed to city council and the planning commission, but we want to make sure that we have some provisions in place to be able to alter, some of these should they fall into a state of disrepair. And this just talks about city manager providing written notice, 30 days, very similar to our current blight procedures. And then lastly, funding. So we actually, through the creation of the social district and the stickers, we've been able to create a fund. We're just now starting to see some of those come in as some of our first social district stickers have been going out to the approved businesses. But really, there's a 5-cent collection on each sticker that goes out for the social district. And the goal for that collection is to make sure that we are creating this fund to support and sustain on certain events, should we choose to in the future, and then also public art installations. So want to make sure that we're clear that, folks are able to, we want to be able to have them apply for those funds. We get asked all the time for funds for different projects and the like. So that's kind of the initial thoughts on a public art policy, and really would appreciate your direction on some things that you think would be good to include, and other things that you don't necessarily like.
Any comments, Brian?
Have we had any thought on historical bearing for the art as far as somebody pertinent to Monroe?
If it's someone so that would be a thought. I mean, if it's not, right now under, kind of the standard mural licensing agreement, it can't have any recognizable figure, or even draw reference to a recognizable figure. But that is something to consider.
I think it'd be great to consider that. There are a lot of people here in Monroe, historical based, besides Custer and others. We have a lot of great people here in Monroe. Some former member of the Tuskegee Airmen. We had one here in Monroe. Just people to think about that were very in world events that we should be prominent in Monroe here with. And I think in showing our appreciation of what they did for us, opening up what the avenue that they did to get into whatever they did in the world endeavors. I think it'd be a great idea to have somebody of historical content.
Great point.
Thoughts?
So I might have a thought on that. So if you recall, it wasn't a short while ago, we had a conversation and council passed a naming policy. And I think when we start talking about recognitions of persons, and of course there's a process with that as far as there's not naming, have a naming policy requires a certain amount of years after death. It's not for living persons. It's and the idea is where do you start and where do you stop when who chooses who is a recognizable figure for the community and who may not be, and how that then starts to be a conversation. I think that there's opportunities for I'll say people that have distinguished themselves within the past that would want to be recognized here in the city. But then we'll start putting murals of persons up, I think is a little more challenging for me for the policy. I think art is art, and art, it's a mural, and a mural's art, but what's the mural to be about art? If we start putting persons and other, then it's gonna, that might, I always say if you start down a path, you never know what it ends, then next thing becomes personal, or maybe a position on something, to being political, to being, it just, where would you prevent that from occurring? And then I think once if my personal thought, if it starts that way, where would it end? And I think that's why we came up with a naming policy, and we've covered many requests, and since the policy, interesting enough, there's not been requests, but there's a couple that I know are time-wise waiting to come back. And that's, I think, a way in which we can recognize, but if it's art, I guess you can say that a portrait of a person is art, but also it then starts to get into recognition and specific legacy and other conversations. We'd have to have conversation about that.
I think that.
But I understand your point.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I think there's an avenue to make some of that happen.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So I definitely have seen this in other cities where it was embraced. And that's kind of one of the things that I'm thinking of, is in terms of, making the city more, giving them more recognition for this person that actually was born and raised here and made a difference.
And that's
But it's
what
a
that's
discussion
what-
we need to have.
Yeah,
I
because that's
agree.
what the naming policy is intended to do, is give recognition to somebody. And it wasn't, and at least in that policy, wasn't included in the fashion of a mural. It was about information posting, naming if it's wished to be so, but I guess we'd have to revisit that also. Thanks, Brian. Other comments from council or questions? Andrew?
Yeah, I got a few. The policy seems to be trying to accomplish a couple different things at once. Part of that is establishing rules surrounding how historically murals, but I suppose in the future sculptures as well, are installed, and the rules guiding that installation, the eligibility, where they can be put, the building and zoning codes that accompany that, and that whole ball of wax. And I know that that's been a point of frustration for some in the community, DMBN included. And I think that in terms of establishing standards and guidelines of how we're going to govern public art displays that are affixed to buildings, especially within the historic district, given how that reflects either on our sign ordinance or maybe how it doesn't, because this is now a separate thing, and how you distinguish between those. And making mention of, in historic districts, these are the set of rules that you're going to play by, and in non-historic districts, because we're a bigger city than that, there are other rules that we might need to play by, but those aren't called out here. So I think that I think the thing that this policy, as you have it now, is going to be most successful at accomplishing is probably going to be establishing rules and guidelines regarding the installation as far as the city is concerned, even if residents and community members are expending their own funds and doing that. Not necessarily with the city funds. I mean, the way that it's written here, it almost assumes that if we don't approve the project and fund the project, there is no project.
Yeah, and that's not the intent. Obviously, if they were to create and sustain, a fund themselves, and they could, and they could commission it themselves, which is really, how a lot of the Planting Seeds murals are being done currently, are through, donations from corporations.
But I think the dream is setting up a set of rules in which there could be a mural, which the city itself would not have to be involved in, apart from the maybe if there's an approval process to a particular committee. But hey, it follows the rules, check, you're done, go do your thing. That's awesome that we have people on their own who are taking initiative and doing the stuff throughout the city. That's kind of what we want to see at the end of the day.
Yep.
I think sort of tacked on to that is this granting process. And especially with this, the overt focus in the rest of the policy on sculpture and murals, that I think that's a fairly narrow view. One that needs to be covered in terms of the zoning and the building questions that we've received in the past and that we're currently tackling with. But I don't think it's holistic in its perspective as it provides a view towards art within and throughout the community. I think that what we have in front of us, even in vision, does not accomplish that. And then third, it sets up a review process within a committee. In this case, it's the CPC that already is one of the committees that has quite a bit on its plate. And I think that such a committee should exist. I'm curious whether, especially for non-mural and non-sculpture related projects, that we'd want the CPC reviewing those. Perhaps a separate arts commission would be a better way to go, but I'm happy to entertain separate options. I struggle. I understand that we're giving it to the CPC because they're reviewing a lot of zoning and planning stuff, and as the mural policy as we currently have it sort of is going through that path anyway. But then again, we're back to the same issue that we were in before of this policy is solely focused on allowing an avenue for mural and sculptures to proceed. And I think that's a narrow focus.
Yeah.
So it's all good stuff. Maybe it needs to be split into pieces and handled that way, but allowing a policy for murals to exist in the city without it being a city project, I think is a good direction and is a direction I'd like to proceed in.
I have some thoughts, but I'll see if there's others. I got part of what you're saying. I didn't really understand some of the third point was on the list, but I'm sure you have it. We'll be able to chance to talk. The Arts Commission, I got to go back just a little way here, and not to go back in history. I don't want that, but I think as long as I've been involved with the city from the Planning Commission on, murals have always been talked about. There's always been discussion, and I'll just give my view. Others may have different views. It never got off the ground because it was never wanted to be. Regulated is the wrong word. Managed, whether it be through a policy, managed whether it be through a commission, because art is art, and we should just embrace it all. And I don't think that's where it started. And then as it got in with council, there was never a real proposal about how to deliver it. There's always an ask to deliver it, always an ask to put a mural up or why can't, and then get into whether it's a historic district, whether it's not a historic district. If you continue to, and I think that's been clarified, and currently is buildings that aren't painted that are historic. I don't think we should start painting. I think we're going to start losing historic tax credits and opportunities for other avenues that we wouldn't want to lose. But there again, if it's a building that's an addition that's not historic and doesn't jeopardize that, then I think it should be a consideration to bear what. And I don't have an answer for that. I don't have an example for that to think of, but I think there's something that's part of that discussion. That having an arts commission has been discussed before, but then we currently have boards and commissions that there's recommendations that are made, and then council from the mayor's office, and then the council members approve. But I think before we can do that, we have to understand what is a mural, what isn't, where some structure should be, and unless we just say all is fair and game and off we go, and I'm not that far there. I think there's got to be some consideration of structure and delivery, because when art goes up and it doesn't meet specifically, then you got to go tell somebody that, well, you didn't meet it quite there. So that's why we should have reviews up front before it gets painted, and because then you got to go and tell somebody that the mural needs to be removed, and that's never an easy thing to do. I think the maintenance part is and sustainability of it is important. There's got to be some understanding that if it's a time frame, and then if it's not meeting the condition or the time frame of whatever the agreement time frame is, then if I understand currently as the current process, and I'm glad you said relevancy of late, which is in recent, as your slide said, because that's where we started. Actually, it was a proposal that had that, but with that says if it's not maintained, it must be painted back to its original I'll say color and structure. So the murals currently are not where it's going to be for forever. That's how we currently have started. But I think there's still a lot of discussion to go. And as I said, today is not about deciding, but it's about really starting the dialogue and conversation for council. even though we have murals that are currently being produced through a structure that works, I think we need to, I won't say revisit that, I think we need to incorporate that. And there's others that have provided some input regarding why we're here today to start some more of the public conversation. But I just don't think that the message is that, just go out and start painting. So I'm not saying you didn't say that, but there's others. The other says it shouldn't matter. We should just be able to do it. And then I'm thinking, well, it's still somebody doesn't like it, but it's art and everybody should like it only because.
I mean,
it's
first
art.
and foremost, regardless of what you're painting, if you're painting on someone's property and you don't have their permission, that's just straight up vandalism now.
No, I'm not saying that. I think it's owners or people that want to.
As well.
They want to get agreements and paint. And I think we have such a great art talent in our community, from spectrum, whether it be portraits to paintings to landscape to now murals. And I think that everybody finds their avenue, what they are accomplished at to paint. I'm not a painter, so I don't have that expertise, but I've seen painting. I know that you kind of stay in the arena in which you're best at. And so I think there has to be some kind of a structure before we just continue to start painting on buildings. This is my thought, but I'm open to discussion.
Well,
Andrew?
yes, thank you, sir. In listening to your comments, it seems that you as well, for the 3 points that I brought out, and I apologize if there was some confusion there, but as I saw them relating to the policy that's in front of us that was proposed, setting the rules and guidelines in the process by which these projects are approved, how maintenance is done, the direction that's given, whatever, including perhaps the committees that are formed to review them. The funding mechanism and that's this quasi-grant format that we have in front of us of people making requests of the city for public art installations or other art projects as we may have them. And then the possible formation of a committee or establishing the rules by which the committee would, the members would be appointed, and then they'd receive the projects, review them, and then approve them. So in listening to your comments, it seems that they were mostly surrounding around the rules and guidelines by which we are going to approve and maintain public art installations across the city. Am I correct in that, or no?
Well, I think there's more to it than that. I'm just saying if you don't have that, then everything goes.
Yeah, and I'm saying that absolutely should be the priority, and it seems to be the closest thing that we are to accomplishing with the policy that's in front of us right now. And I think that it probably should be narrowed to have that format. Not that we shouldn't do the other stuff. I 100% believe that we should, but I think that would need to be fleshed out significantly before I'd be comfortable moving forward with it, is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I think there's ways to go yet.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Other comments, questions? Matt?
Well, I certainly appreciate the feedback in terms of kind of a next step, next direction to go on this. Take some of this feedback, revise the kind of the language in this, and then if you give a little bit of whether it's a structured thing or whether it's more so on the department side, kind of a standard review. One of those two directions, I think, is what I'm picking up from council.
Well, I know we've received other inquiries from the community, and I think that this is a start to at least give a foundation of what we're looking toward the future and currently now and in the future, so that that those that may have an interest know who to contact, since you're standing here in front of us, and how to and kind of talk through that. And I know that's going to be a continuing evolving, but at the same time, there's I'm sure that there's interest now, and so now doesn't mean that it can't happen. But I think we have to put some things in place additionally from where we are right now. Anything else? City manager, anything?
Your Honor, council, I think he's ready to also talk about the recreational vehicle ordinance discussion.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move forward on that one. And I know this is, as you queue it up, I know that there is a bit of discussion in the community because council members and others have we've talked about since last year, and we really had to set some guidelines. So I appreciate this presentation. Thank you. David?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, happy to be here once again. Just wanted to start kind of, as the mayor alluded, a little bit of history on this topic. May 2021, I believe the members who were on council at that time received a letter from a few concerned citizens, both both households had received citations for having a boat and or recreational vehicle in their driveway. That really kind of prompted some thoughts and kind of an initial reaction from council throughout the pandemic, as kind of the enforcement of the city kind of ordinance policy kind of slowed a little bit. Obviously, it was reignited, I believe, again with some recent requests that have come in. Basically the same kind of concerns that city council, or that I should say, neighbors are expressing. And so March 6th, if you recall, Mr. Cochran presented on the existing kind of language that's included related to recreational vehicles. And was encouraged by council to revisit this, kind of tweak out some language on it, and come to you with something, kind of as a template. Obviously, I believe former city manager past you indicated, a first step would be to take something to Planning Commission for recommendation to come before council. I think he had mentioned in his comments on March 6th. To come back to this body first with some proposed language. So really looking at this, and I really have to give thanks to everyone in our department for kind of looking at this issue, not only from a practicality of putting something in place, but really looking at the enforcement at the end of the day, knowing that kind of our blight enforcement agents, there are a lot of times the ones who are answering that call in response, and knowing that there are three of them, and so doing so would pull them off of other items. So definitely wanted to make it something pretty concise, simple, easy to follow. And some of the key items, obviously, this is broken into two parts: parking and storage, and we'll get into a little bit of that here. Definition of a recreational vehicle is the same as it's found throughout the zoning ordinance. I believe it was if I go here, Chapter 5, Section 24, Section G, and really kind of explains out. But if we go back, obviously boats, jet skis, snowmobiles, truck, camper bodies, travel trailers, off-road and altered vehicles, motor homes, and utility trailers, including trailers for carrying or storage. So that's right now the definition of recreational vehicle that we go off of. As you can see, this is where it's mentioned currently. So to get into some of the proposed language, first and foremost, under the Section 5, 24 off-street parking and loading, we're adding or suggesting adding the language, may be parked on a public street or in any driveway on a residential lot with the permission of the lot owner for the purpose of loading and unloading the vehicle, or for the general maintenance of the vehicle, not to exceed 48 hours. That was a pretty concise, if we looked at other areas within our own policy and also looked at neighboring municipalities, that 48-hour mark came up, especially for the parking side of things. We'll get into the storage a little bit later. We're also proposing adding Section 5, Part 31, recreational vehicle off-street parking and storage. And really that's just basically alluding to the off-street parking or storage of a recreational vehicle. So to get into kind of the weeds of this a bit, without taking too much of your time, obviously, the first thing that we wanted to look at was parking. So this is, more so, think of parking as more so a temporary use, temporary location. For a vehicle, obviously we have the number in here of 48 hours. We want to make sure too, that we're getting your feedback on this. This is just kind of what we had come across. A key thing to consider with parking is to make sure that it's not impeding on, a neighbor's property in any way, shape, or form. To do that, we had indicated, in this language, no more than 100 feet from the property line to which the recreational vehicle is registered. Now, that's for on-street parking within that 48-hour window. We had considered 1,000 feet. When you look at a lot of the city blocks, you're hard pressed to get 1,000 feet in that city block, and want to make sure that we're keeping it as close to the household as possible for the vehicle registered to the owner of the property. And obviously, the purpose of the 48 hours is for unloading, preparing for a trip, preparing to go fishing. Obviously, we are a lakefront community. It's a way of life here on some of these items, but we want to make sure that we're not prohibiting neighbors who may not also be living that lifestyle from enjoying the community as well. The second part of this is storage. Under storage, we have a number of different provisions that we're proposing. Each vehicle shall be fully stored within the rear yard or within an interior side yard on a paved or gravel surface. A lot of the times when we run into blight enforcement issues, it's because boats are parked in the grass or something, and say it rains and, the ruts of the wheels get stuck. So we thought that was important to include. Section B here really just kind of focuses on a lot of the stuff that we have currently existing in our residential zoning codes in terms of setbacks, setback requirements, and the like. C, when stored in an interior side yard, the vehicle shall not project beyond the front wall of the house. So that's another issue that we've seen sometimes, it ends up being too far. Creates a number of different issues. I think sightline was mentioned earlier during the DDA presentation. That's one thing definitely, as people are trying to pull out of driveways and the like, we want to make sure that happens. We looked at the 6 feet, which would be, kind of the height requirement. We have exceptions below, which really take that to 10 or 11 feet. That's really pretty, concise with a lot of our zoning in the residential districts for accessory structures currently. A lot of times it's either half of the primary structure height or a maximum of 16 feet, whichever ends up being lower is the permitted use for, say, if someone wanted to put a garage on a house or something of the like. So obviously, we wanted it to be under that and not prohibiting any viewpoints. I believe there was a comment during the I watched the March 6th meeting back today just to make sure that I was addressing a lot of the concerns that came up during that. And one of the concerns was the amount of space required, and especially in consideration to the neighbors behind the house. So we have some language in here about 25% of a required rear yard or 40% of any non-required rear yard to really kind of address that point. E talks a little bit about front yard setback required and talks a little bit about corner lots. We view those differently than a standard lot. Obviously, they're exposed on more sides to public view and the like. Vehicles shall not be used to store flammable or explosive fuels. I think that's pretty commonplace, and that was included in a number of our neighboring municipality language on this. G, and this one kind of gets more. G touches more so on the blight concern. Shall be fully operable and kept in a state of proper repair, and shall be secured to prevent unauthorized entry. In addition, no unit shall be allowed to become unsightly or unkempt. So making sure that these are, recreational vehicles that are being used frequently, and that, property within our residential neighborhoods primarily are not becoming, storage shelters at the end of the day. H, vehicles shall display the current license plate and or registration and essentially the, seasonal tags, seasonal licenses, depending on whichever sport or utility for those recreational vehicles. Then I, at no time shall a recreational vehicle be used for living or housekeeping purposes, except for and then in terms of being connected to water, gas, electrical, sanitary, except for the purpose of heating, preparing, doing a repair of some kind, short-term fix. And then J, other than in an enclosed building, no person shall park or store more than 2 units upon any single-family residential lot or parcel in a single-family residential area. And I just want to read the second sentence here so that way you kind of get a clear picture for what we mean when we say unit. For the purposes of this limitation, units used in conjunction with one another, such as a boat mounted upon a boat trailer, shall be considered as one unit. So that would be the same if you've got jet skis that, a lot of times you'll see the dual jet skis that are mounted upon a trailer, that would be considered as one unit as well. Requests for exceptions, special approvals or variances, very similar to standard protocol and processes. Number 4, waiver of regulations, provisions concerning location may be waived for a period of up to 2 weeks. So this is very important. A lot of times we hear that, we were getting our recreational vehicle ready for, you name the season, right? Whether it's summer, winter, in the case of snowmobiles, et cetera. So we're proposing offering a 2 time per year, 2-week window where property owners could apply for a permit, and really just to say, yep, we're going to operate on this for 2 weeks. We'd like to keep it here for 2 weeks as we get it tuned up for the season. And this was something that we saw in a lot of the other communities as well, allowing for this type of a solution. I know that came up during the March 6th meeting as well. And then not more than 2 permits to be issued in 1 calendar year. So that would be that twice per year. And then violations, and making sure that instead of having to go back and update this ordinance by putting an arbitrary citation or a fine, that we're keeping steady with our annual during the fiscal year process, included, I believe, on page 5 of the budget each year, in terms of stating what the amount of the citation would be. So that way it gives you as council the flexibility to increase or decrease that, and just knowing that it's evaluated on an annual basis. And with that, I would be happy to field any questions or comments.
See if there's any comments, but I made me think of this in the past presentations, right, from the DDA right through. Will these be available?
Absolutely.
Because
Yep.
can I write so many notes and see
Yeah.
exactly the way it's worded? I don't want to make sure I'm not recording it wrong in my thought
Absolutely.
process either. So, because I think there's going to be, all these are going to have some, not the presentation, of course, the DDA, that's an annual report, but the regarding the public art and then the recreational vehicles. I know I'd want to see it again. So I'll see if there's any questions to start. I'll start next to me, Michelle.
Thank you. Did we mention anywhere, maybe I missed it, like a hauling trailer, not the boat trailer, not a jet ski, like something you would move your home and you load it up with furniture and you'd haul it away? Is that mentioned in anything in here?
Storage trailer?
Yeah, storage, utility trailers, including trailers for carrying or storage. I'll have to look in to see if that would be the most appropriate way to define that.
Or a pod type thing?
Sorry. I'll let.
Real quick, those are already addressed in the zoning ordinance, and you have to get a permit for the pods
Couldn't remember.
specifically,
All right, thank you.
because they're not on wheels, so.
Okay.
Could you head to the second to last slide, please?
Yep.
It's going to be 0.3. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
So this would be similar to the current zoning board of appeals criteria for allowing exemptions? Is that my understanding?
Looking at Matt.
Yep.
I think it is. That's what I
Okay.
read.
This is a chapter in the zoning ordinance.
Right. I'm going to have to go reference that chapter then. It's my understanding that there is a list of criterias in the zoning ordinance to receive an appeal. And one of those has to do with impacts of neighboring residences and whether or not there's hardships made because of the allowance of the exemption. Is the bar so high enough where the neighbors would have to be positively affected by the exemption? Or is it simply that there does not have to be a hardship stated by one of the neighbors?
I see what you're saying.
I don't,
Yeah, what's
and I
the
don't
hard-
have the chapter in front of me, so I'm
Yeah, I
unable
don't
to.
either. So what's the hardship, I think is what you're
Yeah,
asking.
because I mean, you're never going to have a situation in which you having an exemption is going to create a beneficial situation for your neighbor, though they might not care that you do it. You know what I mean? How high is the bar is where I'm asking.
It's not too high, but you do have to demonstrate that the variance and the negative impact would not have an adverse impact on the neighbors. So in this case, I think we built in, if you've got the hardship, well, we allow you to park it for 48 hours to prepare for trips. We allow you 2 weeks out of the year, twice, to get it ready for the season and not. You would have to show for storage purposes, not necessarily for parking, why you have a hardship in this case. And we looked at a lot of lots across the city on, would most people be able to store their recreational vehicle on their lot? It's not going to be the case in every neighborhood because the lots are so small. There are instances where you can't get it into the backyard. There's no access into the backyard. And that's an instance, I think, when we look at recreational vehicles, you have to take that into account, the neighborhood in which you're living, the area in which you're living, when you buy that and store it in the city. And may have to factor off-site storage into that cost.
Anything else? Brian, did you have something?
No, I did not.
Others? Okay, I've got a couple, and I want to make sure we have enough time for the last item here, because I won't probably go into all this, but there's a lot to unpack here. I think, you know, I don't know where to start even, actually, because something you just said, and I can't remember what it was, what Mark said there. You said I'm gonna start here because that's a note I see in the middle of the page. 6 feet in height. You're talking from the ground to the top of the item that's there?
Yeah, so it would be kind of the combined height, so if it was sitting on a trailer or the like, obviously exceptions to that. And that's what kind of allows for it to go either to 10 or 11 feet in height.
Okay, because a motorhome's gonna be definitely more 6 feet to begin with.
And it depends, right? There's the pop-up trailers and the like, kind of the smaller ones, which I think I've seen more and more recently. But that's more so for storage on the storage side. Yep.
The conversation's been going on for a while within the city. We have residents that obviously are opposed, and we have residents that obviously own them, and they don't want to have to put them out to storage. I think I guess one of the things, and this is kind of where I get back to, is, want to make sure it's fair for what we can use it for and fair to all. And I know there'll always be those in opposition or those that greatly support. It has to be reasonably implemented for me. I see some challenges here. but also to me, it's got to be manageable for public safety and, time, cost, compliance. There's various steps in here that are time specific, day specific, ability to get 2 times per year. I'd like to know the definition of repair, because I think there's some opportunities for mechanical work, which leads to garage and lifts and oil. And I don't think that's what we want. Look, I don't think that's what you're referring to here, but I think the more that we think about where we are currently that we're not enforcing to where we may be going in the future, I'm just not, I'd see how is it going to be manageable for public safety, and start with the building department and the calls, and then they manage that, disseminating that, going to see it. Well, I'm only here for the next day and I'll be gone because it's 2 days, but then it shows up again. I'm not real, I'm concerned with on-street parking, even if it is 100 feet. I think that we have challenges that we're hearing from residents now about on-street parking. And I think that there's a lot that I'd like to look at. That's why I wanted to see the presentation.
absolutely.
I could probably write the notes to the page and just jumping all over here I am.
Yeah.
Currently. So currently we can store on the lot, correct? People can store items on their lot in the backyard.
Well, under certain conditions.
Okay, and I know we have some that aren't, and some that are sticking out, but, and I know that we have, so we wouldn't be here if everybody was compliant to the current ordinance, and
Right.
when I recognize that the current ordinance, we need some adjustments. I don't dispute that at all. So I guess I'm gonna wait, until I actually can write some notes on each one, because I can't read half of what I just wrote right now, probably, to make a good compliment.
I'm happy to send it. Happy to send it out
Appreciate
to everyone.
And I really think there's a lot to consider, and to me, in the end, it's going to be manageable. I mean, people that decide that they want to own a boat or RV, and then manage that through their front yard parking lot or in the street, I think I think when you purchase it, you have to put it somewhere. And it doesn't mean that we have to accommodate that through an ordinance because some want to park it in the street or out the front yard and you can't see down the street, whether it's 48 hours, 2 weeks, whatever it might be. There's usually a cost associated with those, which includes storage, just like a boat should be in a boat slip during the summer, not, in and out of the driveway or in the street, my view. And how do we balance that for the community as a whole? So that's my thought.
Absolutely.
I know we're about 15 minutes, and we have one more item that we should make sure we get to today. Matt, thank you. I look forward to seeing that.
Thanks.
And
Appreciate your
I might
time.
have some other comments, but rather than going on right now, so I appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Robinson, we have one more item.
Yes, sir. If we could have the blight and rental housing code enforcement update that'll be given by Mr. Cochran. And in regards to the other
Yeah.
processes, the ordinances, et cetera, if it would be possible, if we could send all those out to the council members, and in a timely fashion, council members could give us written critiques and responses, and that way we are able to respond to those, and that way we can craft everything so then we get it as close to what you're looking for before we bring it to you again.
Right. I think it'd be great, and there's obviously another opportunity for a work session and kind of look at collectively what those requests may be. There may be more after that. So,
Thank you.
Mark, welcome. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Mark Cochran, Director of Economic and Community Development. I would first like to thank Matt and Amy. It's a bit of throwing them to the wolves this evening. They've done, in their short tenure here at the city, they've done a lot of research in terms of what other communities have done and trying to find a way to serve all of our residents, which is a challenge given the unique neighborhoods that we have across the city. And so certainly Matt and both Amy have put a lot of work into the presentations that you saw tonight, a lot of fine nuances to think about what have other communities done. that we need to, be aware of as we're writing these policies and ordinances, and ultimately for this body to approve. So thank you for the feedback and questions tonight, and we'll continue to refine these and bring them back until hopefully we get something that supports where you want us to go. So my presentation tonight hopefully will be a little bit quick, but if you'll recall, last year, City Council increased the legal budget for Mr. Buds' office, and with that, we hired Jean O'Brien, and the City Council named her as the Deputy Legal Counsel or Deputy City Attorney for Code Enforcement. And so I wanted to just bring you up to speed on some efforts and highlights that we've done since January 1, 2022 in terms of blight enforcement, rental housing, code enforcement, and also property maintenance. And so last year, we convened every Thursday afternoon. Our team meets, and it's the individuals that you see listed in the first bullet point. Really like to give them credit for trying to put us into a direction that's a very clear policy and a very clear procedure in terms of enforcement and compliance when it comes to blight. Myself, Lauren Bennis, our building and zoning administrator, Jim Rowan and Jim Stavartek, our blight inspectors, Chris Spare provides administrative support in the building division. Of course, Matt Buds and Gene O'Brien. Terry Davis, an incredibly important part of our team in the data business intelligence and data analytics with Laserfish and other tools and resources that we have. And then later joined by Matt Vanasacker and Rebecca McCollum. Rebecca is our newest blight inspector, full-time blight inspector, since we moved the one part-time position into full-time. I already mentioned adding Gene O'Brien to the team. And then also, you'll see it later in the presentation, but you might recall we also created an online dashboard so the public can see the progress that we're making as well when they submit complaints and where they're at, so they're not thinking the city's not following up and doing things. So the procedures that we've been following for about the year and a half now, the past year and a half, once a complaint is received, and we get those in many different ways. Of course, we always like to encourage our residents to use the My Monroe on the Go app. Very easy to submit a concern. A lot of our residents, when they're walking around the city, they'll snap a picture, report it, tell us the address, and then we follow up. The department sends a notice letter just saying you're in violation, you have 7 days to correct it. If it's not corrected within 7 days, the department will issue the first citation with a fine of $100. After that, you're given 2 weeks to correct it. And then if we don't hear from you and if it's not been corrected, the second citation will be issued and mailed to the property owner. And at that point, it's added to the blight dashboard that I mentioned earlier on the website, so the residents can track the progress on these issues. If we still don't hear from you and there's been no effort made to work with the city to correct an issue, the city attorney's office will send a letter notifying them that they're in violation, and at that point, we give them 30 days to correct it. So at this point, someone received a week, then another 2 weeks, then another 2 weeks, and then we give them 30 days to correct it. Most of the time, the department is very good. If you call in and it's a big issue and you're working to address it and you tell us the steps that you're taking, we don't continue to escalate it. Keep us informed, outreach, but this is really meant for those who, I'll say, thumb their nose to the city and ignore all the notices that they've gotten. If after 30 days there's no response to the attorney letter, then we bring that to City Council. And I'll go through some statistics here shortly, asking for your authorization to file a circuit court complaint in order to use the judicial system to compel compliance. And then after that, the complaint is filed, and Mr. Buds or Ms. O'Brien work that complaint through the circuit court process. This is the online blight tracker. So if there's a particular address that you're interested in, that you're receiving complaints about, you can go to this website. And I'm, for the sake of time this evening, I'm not going to click on it, but of course it's on the city's website. You can see on the right-hand side, right now we have 25 open investigations that have had at least 2 citations. But we've also had success in closing out 26 complaints. I believe I did this last week. And then you can click on each property and it'll say the step that they received a letter, they got the first citation, second citation, attorney letter, where that's at, and also the genesis of the complaint. That's also what gets put in your packet when we come to you asking for legal authorization as well. We print that page out so that you can see every step of the way what's happened. So as a result of this, since January 1 on the My Monroe app of January 1 of 2022, we've received 175 blight reports, 36 letters, had to receive a letter from the city attorney's office, meaning no resolution after the courtesy letter and the 2 citations. You have authorized 32 properties for further legal action, resulting in 26 actions being filed in circuit court in the past 18 months. As a result of those 26 actions, 16 cases have been resolved through either dismissal because they've come through in compliance, or the court has compelled them and they have resolved it as a result of a court judgment. We do currently have 9 cases pending. So I want to say the follow-up that we've had, and I think the message that hopefully the community is receiving, we've had 175 reports and 36 of them have had to have legal authorization at some point. It's over 100 and, I'm not a math major, but over 120 that have complied as a result of the notices and citations. And we appreciate, obviously, the public support in making sure that our city is clean and upkept. So I just wanted to provide those statistics for you, since this has kind of been routine. We've added the blight authorizations on the consent agenda, but just wanted to highlight this evening. A couple other things is, I know Councilwoman Vining isn't here this evening, but she had mentioned the condition of some of our alleys. And so our division has also implemented, we call them alley sweeps, in conjunction with the DPS department. So if a particular alley has come to our attention either through routine enforcement or by you or residents, what we'll do is we'll send a letter to every property owner that butts up against that alley and remind them it's their responsibility to maintain the footage along the alleyway, just as they have to do their front yard. And if the DPS department will be scheduled to go through, I think we give 3 weeks. 3 weeks they'll come through and do the cleanup, and if they have to do anything, the property owner gets billed. So we try and give everybody a heads up, a reminder, maintain the alley. We give them a time frame to do it, and if they don't, then we'll take care of it to make sure our alleyways are also kept clean and cleared. And then there are some blight issues where we don't feel it's necessarily appropriate to take across the courtyard to circuit court. It hasn't risen to that sort of level, but we're not having any success in getting compliance through our other means. And so coming soon, Matt Vanasacker has been working on an RFP for a collection service. And if we have a hard time collecting on the citations and other issues, then it'll go to the Collections Bureau. So that contract will be coming to you pretty soon with more information. Any questions on blight? Okay, moving along. Rental code enforcement. The same committee has been working on this as well. So certainly during the COVID-19 pandemic, we had paused and halted the rental inspection program. In 2021, shortly into the year, we resumed rental ordinance enforcement. Obviously, we had a backlog of those who had not been certified during the COVID pandemic. We were trying to catch up with them, those individuals, get the inspections done, and bring them into full compliance. That backlog we're still working through, believe it or not. But just as a reminder, in our ordinance, chapter 550, it says, no person shall lease or rent a residential rental structure or residential rental unit unless there is a valid certificate of compliance issued by the designated enforcement officer. So the requirements are that each rental property has to be registered with the department. It must be inspected. There's a rental inspection fee of $150. After the inspection is done, and in case we have to go out and do a re-inspection as a result of violations, there is a re-inspection fee that is set on page 5 of the budget that Matt referred to earlier. That's $75. But every year, every 3 years, this is a 3-year rental process, 30 days before the expiration date, the department sends a letter to the landlord reminding them that their certificate's about to expire and they need to become certified. And that we must complete the inspection before the certificate expires. In the event that something that is not certified, the designated enforcement officer by the code shall revoke any existing certificate of compliance and may bring any action to seek the enforcement of this chapter by any appropriate legal remedy. In this instance, if you fail to register and inspect, then the fine is doubled and you still have to be registered and complete the inspection. So that's a little background on what the existing ordinance and the process is. So right now, if a property is not inspected, the letter receives a letter, or if the property is not inspected, the landlord will receive a letter that they need to reschedule that. We call that a lockout. If it's scheduled, our inspector shows up, they're not allowed in. They need to reschedule that and we charge the appropriate fee. If we get no response to that, we partner with, again, the city attorney's office to mail a letter to the landlord. If no response is received, then we bring that to city council to, much like the blight process, to escalate that with a complaint in circuit court to bring the property owner into compliance. Part of this process, new this year, we've instituted a new sticker that gets placed on the door. If the landlord is unresponsive, then after following the letter from the city attorney's office, we ask city council to authorize legal action. The department goes out and puts a sticker on the door so the tenant becomes aware. Many times the tenants aren't aware that the landlord's not been responsive and that the unit hasn't been inspected, notifying them that the certificate is going to be revoked and they have 15 days to vacate. Normally that gets a lot of attention and the landlords start calling then and the tenants get worried. So most of the time we do eventually find resolution upon this step. And then within 15 days, if we don't hear anything, if it's not resolved, the landlord's not calling to try and work with us, then the attorney's office will file a court complaint. 5 properties in the past year have been approved by city council for legal enforcement. Out of that whole list, I think we brought over 25 to city council originally. We narrowed it down to 5 for legal enforcement. Only 1 we've had to file a court complaint on. So there's a lot of steps we take before getting to this point, obviously. But this is relevant because there is a list of 29 on your agenda tonight that we are asking for that enforcement on. They've received many, many letters from the department, from Attorney Buds' office, and we've not had any success. So most of these, they owe $220 from the overdue fee. They have not been inspected, and we have not heard from the property owner. Any questions on that portion? Okay, finally, property maintenance enforcement update. So the city has adopted the International Property Maintenance Code, the 2015 edition. And in that code that city council has adopted, the building official has the authority to order properties that are not safe, sanitary, or fit for occupation and require them to be demolished by the responsibility of the property owner. Obviously, these are worst case scenarios. Failure to comply if the building owner or if the building official issues a notice of demolition and the property owner fails to actually demolish the property, then the city begins to initiate the process ourselves. And I'm going to talk a bit about that in a minute. So once the order is issued, the property owner has the ability to file an appeal of that order with the Construction Board of Appeals if they disagree. Previously, it used to be that you had to file the appeal and then we would schedule the meeting. We've gone a step further, and every month the Construction Board meets now. And when an order is issued, we let them know when that property is going to be on the Construction Board's agenda for them to either hear the appeal or to uphold the building official's order. At the Construction Board of Appeals, they have the opportunity to appeal that. If the individual or if the Construction Board upholds that order, then they have 20 days following that to appeal to circuit court. If they don't appeal and there's no appeal filed, the property owner has the responsibility to tear it down. If they don't do that, then we have the right to initiate the demolition ourselves, which many times that's the case, and then bill the property owner for those costs. Many times that goes on the tax bill if the invoice is not paid. So since January 1, 2022, the building official has issued 19 notices for order and demolition. 17 of those demolition orders have been upheld. 6 demolitions have been actually completed so far, and 2 appeals have been filed in the circuit court to appeal the construction board's decision. The demolitions that were complete, all of those contracts come before City Council to approve the demolition contract with the contractor. So you'll see the 5 on the left that have been demolished in the past year as a result of this. And then you'll see the column on the right where the demolition is in process. I wanted to call attention to just a couple tonight because they may be ones that you're familiar with. 15 and 19 West Vine Street. This is a garage that was built on 2 properties. So the property line goes down the middle of the garage. It was in imminent danger of collapse. The building official ordered it demolished. It went before the construction board. They upheld the decision. And we are very close. We're getting a contract to complete that demolition in the coming weeks. And each of the property owners will be billed accordingly their portion of that demolition. 704 North Telegraph Road, you may be familiar with this. It's an old car wash next to the Lake Erie Transit Station on North Telegraph Road. This has been one, I will say, I think the Construction Board of Appeals have had the patience of, I don't know what to compare it to, but this has been on the agenda for the past year. They've come saying they're making efforts to try and improve it. They've not turned in the necessary documents. Finally, the order has been upheld, and that demolition will be going forward very shortly because they've moved past their 21-day appeal period. 509 Arbor Avenue is another property that severely dilapidated. The roof has large holes in it. The property owner appealed that order. The Construction Board of Appeals upheld the decision, gave them some time to bring back. And I'll say, if you ever want to attend a Construction Board of Appeals meeting, the property owners mostly come. They say they want to fix it up. The Construction Board gives them time to bring back some documents showing that they have a contract in place, that they are going to do some work. But if they don't, eventually the order is upheld. That was the case here. I want to highlight this one because this is one that has been appealed to circuit court and it's pending review in court. 710 North Monroe Street's the last one to call out. This house experienced a fire, I want to say 2 months ago, somewhere in that neighborhood. The property owner has not demolished it, given the condition that it sits in. It's across the street from St. Joe's Cemetery. This was on the construction board last month, and they upheld the building officials' order on this one, and so that demolition will be going soon as well. So with all of that, I can certainly send you this as well so you can see the process, the statistics, but I particularly want to thank City Council for your support. I hope that the community and you are seeing a return on the actions that we're taking to try and make sure our city is clean and beautiful for both our residents and visitors alike, but most importantly, safe for everybody as well.
Thanks, Mark. I know that time-wise, I'm looking at council. I know that I have some thoughts on this, but at the same time, I think looking at the city manager, if we could, the last 3 items, we probably need to have some more conversation about. If the PowerPoints could be sent to the council, we can have the opportunity to make some notes on those and come back. I know I have some on this one as well. I'm sure the other council members do. Just for time sensitivity, though, I think we should.
Sorry for going long. I didn't realize the time.
We had a good conversation earlier, which started the process. And time at the end is usually because it's a continuation of all the other things before it. So, but I do appreciate it, Mark. Thanks.
Thank you.
Attorney Bud, you have a question?
No, Your Honor, the only thing I was going to remind is that there should be an opportunity for public comment at the conclusion of this meeting.
I have that next on my list before we close, because I know we have some people that are here throughout. So the work session is what we just had, and I know that I'm looking at the clerk as well. We'll want to hear those that might have a comment. So those are here. Is there any comments from those present regarding tonight's work session? You may be here for things that are on the agenda for the council meeting. We'll have a public comment that time, but if there's things maybe related to earlier, so I see somebody has his hand up. So what we ask is just state your name, your jurisdiction of residence, and be mindful of the 3 minutes that we have to hear what your item is, but we ask for the names so the clerk can make comes of official record. So a gentleman in the front here is first, and then we'll go to the second.
Hello, everyone. It's my first time here. I am not a resident of Monroe. I am a property owner, though.
Okay.
I am in Miss Vining's district. I guess she's sick. That's why she's not here today. I wasn't even going to talk about this, but I just had some comments. So I'm a landlord. Many different municipalities. The previous gentleman spoke about putting a sticker on the door as far as the ordinance violation. This is something I brought up in court myself as well, because I have tenants and whatever. Not sure how it would fare down here, but in the Third Circuit Court, so Wayne County, the sticker on the door was actually determined to be an act of vandalism. So what they do is they send certified certified letters to the property owner and also the tenant or the property as well. So if you guys do go forward with that, I would just maybe look at that first off, so you don't want to get sued. As far as it said, $150 for the rental certificate, $75 if there's a reinspection. I'm not gonna say how we do up there, but so that's fine. But there's an issue. Sometimes the tenant is refusing to allow an inspection. It happens. Now, I didn't hear from the gentleman. So when that happens, the ordinance officer is to go to the court and get a search warrant. So it's not the fault of the property owner. So for being a property owner, a landlord, I don't think a landlord should be punished, especially when he's, looking at these $150, $200 tickets for no rental certificate. A landlord should not be punished if the tenant is refusing. I would think about that a little bit if it was me. As far as the 48 hours, if you have your RV parked to get fixed, I don't know about you guys. I've never heard of a boat getting fixed in 48 hours. It just never happens. I would maybe make that length of time a little bit higher, extend that. As far as the artwork, I like it. We have it in Canton, but I would suggest that all artwork ideas be approved by council. As you guys know, all artwork is objective. You guys might think something's nice. This person might not. They might have a different perspective on it, a different definition for it, different interpretation. And as far as the Tuskegee Airmen thing, I like the idea. I always say avoid anything political when it comes to artwork, because you don't want something down the road where you have people that are upset about something. Maybe there was something that, whatever. As far as the demolition of that last thing, the demolition of homes. So a lot of the homes that are demolished, and you guys have been doing a great job, by the way, especially on the east side. A lot of them are older, so they have asbestos. So there's certain, obviously, asbestos you're not supposed to touch. So there's a certain method to deal with those. I'm not sure, he didn't speak about the process of how those homes are demolished. But just because some of my rental properties are over there, you don't want to have asbestos flying up in the air for the neighbors and everyone else to breathe in. Thank you.
Oh, before you leave, is your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is William Asper.
Okay, William. I know through our demolition process with the organizations that we contract with, asbestos is one of the number one things we make sure is done. So it's done, and where it goes and what landfill or how it's disposed of has to be done by the state. So thank you, though.
Thank you very much.
Other comments? Yes, please come forward. Name, please, address and jurisdiction, and your 3 minutes. So
Okay. My name's Diane Braden, and Kathy Dykstra, but we're coming in the part of the handicap parking for the ramp accessible. You guys have van accessible spots, but they're not large enough for a van accessible spot with a ramp, for somebody with a ramp. They don't work for us. And then there's nothing to prevent, when it says van accessible, there is nothing to prevent anybody else from parking there. Other places in which we go will have van ramp accessible only, and there will be fines if somebody takes it. Because we don't shop down here and we don't go downtown to enjoy the new sidewalks because we have no parking to take and come out and park. If we do park, we're parked like we're outside there crossing 2 and 3 spots to be able to release a ramp, which we know we could get ticketed for. And Kathy has the ordinances and the sizes for the van ramp accessible.
ADA compliance for wheelchair accessible parking does not, for accessible parking does not always indicate wheelchair accessible parking. For wheelchair accessible parking, there are 2 different sizes required. The space being 132 inches wide, the 60-inch aisle next to it, or 2 96-inch wide spots. If I try to park in one of the 23-inch spots next to me, that's big enough for my ramp to go down. There's nowhere for me to get off of my ramp if somebody parks next to me. We also have a huge issue with people parking either completely or partially on the blue lines. If it is a handicap accessible spot with a ramp, with an aisle big enough, and they park on that aisle, I also come back to my van, I can't get in my van, or I can't get out of my van. And there's never anybody that gets, or I shouldn't say never, but rarely somebody that would be ticketed for parking on the blue lines. But it really impedes somebody with a ramp van from parking in those spots. If there isn't a spot, I take up 2 spots because I park on an angle, so no one parks next to me. And I've gotten ticketed for doing that. And then there's parallel parking, which is downtown, which you cannot let your ramp down on a curb. So if you park on the wrong side of the street so you can let your ramp down into the street, I have been ticketed for that. So it makes someone that with a wheelchair van it difficult to park in a downtown community. We're not the only community that has issues with that. It's just it's a big issue. If we're trying to beautify Monroe and allow us to enjoy it, then there has to be a place for us to park as well.
You've got these new sidewalks that are absolutely beautiful that we could go down, but we can't get out of our vehicle to go.
And the other thing with that is the sidewalks, businesses put tables and chairs out there or benches, and that makes the sidewalk so it's no longer accessible. But that's neither here nor there. But the big issue is parking downtown.
I know I made notes. I see the city manager's making notes as well. So there's a couple of follow-ups I see. I know the public safety director is here regarding enforcement, but on the other hand, revision of the state laws to make sure our parking and our accessibility within the city meets the standards that are required. So we'll have that looked into, I know, through the manager and with the staff as well.
You have the site so they can
Thank-
have it.
If there was an email address, I could forward some of the information to
If you
guys.
could provide it to the manager before you go.
Is it on the website, the town website, an email address that I could, who should I address it to?
Well, I said, if you stop to get the email address for you to depart, if you can get that, then you'll have it. All right. I know that the city attorney's here as well, and I'm sure he's making notes.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments that were here regarding the work session? Further comments regarding the work session?
Good evening. My name's Gloria Raffco at 127 Borges, and I have a blight complaint. The house next door to us has been vacant for 4 years. It has 3 sections of the roof that's gone. They haven't cut my son and the neighbors on the other side cut the grass for 3 years, and they're not doing it anymore. So last year, we called, and the city came out a couple times. We had to call every time. They didn't just come. And then the house was taken over by the county because it was up for auction. Well, she eventually just got in the auction and bought the house back. Never moved in, never came to the house. So there it sits, and she has 2 years to not pay taxes, and it'll go to auction again, right? Okay. And then same thing will happen. Well, we're wondering why. And the people that come out to cut the grass, when we finally called the other day, he comes with a huge lawnmower, goes in the back, zip, zip, zip. The grass was this long, so it looks like hay back there. That's blowing all over the place. In the front, she has rocks and stones, very little grass. So when they come to cut it, they don't do the weeds, which are coming up everywhere. So we have to call again. And we're wondering, is this going to go on forever? Is that what we have to do every 2 weeks? We have to call the city and say the grass is long? I mean, Michelle doesn't call me every day and say, your taxes are late, your taxes are late.
That's not
I'm
part of the
paying
blight,
them.
but that, I understand your point, Ms. Rafco. So I make sure I'll have a conversation with the manager. As you know, when you can't take care of blight till your blight's reported, there is an app for which to do that, or phone calls that can be made. So I am familiar with the address, and I think council is familiar with the address. I also believe that the staff is familiar with the address. So I will. I guess if it becomes blighted, I'd ask that at any time that be reported. But I can't guarantee that the staff's going to go down the street every day, every 2 weeks as well, to see if there is the grass been cut. But if it's not being maintained, then, looking forward to be reported so we can take action.
Well, it's not being maintained by anybody but the city now.
Then
So-
they're getting billed for the maintenance of that.
So they're getting billed.
Yeah, well, if we have to go do with the maintenance, then we bill the owner, and it goes on the taxes, and it goes on the property. So I understand.
But nothing can be done other than
Well, that
that.
is what we do. That we do when there's blights reported, that we respond to it. If they own the house and they're not doing it, we can simply continue to maintain it and bill them. If it becomes other issues, we'll address those as well. If it's an infestation or whatever it might be.
Well, something is in there.
Anything else, Ms. Rafco?
And something's in the house, but they
Okay.
said they can't do anything about the inside, right?
I'll have it looked into. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, it's 3 minutes.
Well, I can tell because the curtains are pulled back.
Okay, 3 minutes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other comments from those that were here regarding the work session? We're significantly beyond our time, so at this time, I'll close the work session. I'm not going to start in the moment of minute. I need a couple of minutes, and I'll be right back, before we start the regular council meeting. Thank you. I apologize for the delay for everybody, and we'll work on that. So at this time, I'll call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
He's here, I'm sorry, I would have waited had I known he wasn't at the,
Whitman? Here. Steelgrave? Here. Vining? Germaini?
she excused, I'm sorry. I received notice.
Lamore?
Present.
Mayor Clark?
Present. I'll wait till Councilman Felder returns. I didn't know he had moved out of this chair. I was walking away myself. I know that Councilman Felder is here, so wait for a second. Thank you, Councilman. I'd ask we please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Guide us in our deliberations and discussions this evening. May our efforts promote the good of the residents of the city and all who visit.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, first item, please.
The first item on the agenda is the approval of regular agenda.
Manager Robinson, I think we have an item that you want to,
Yes, Your Honor. Council, I would like to add at the end of the agenda, a closed session for the purposes of labor negotiations.
okay. Mr. Buds, anything additional?
No, Your Honor, I would just either entertain that there be a motion to make that amendment or to approve the agenda with that amendment.
Understand. Are there other items on the agenda for council members? Seeing none. So we need a motion on the regular agenda. Councilman Lamore.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to approve the agenda as written, but amend it to include a closed session regarding labor negotiations.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilman Felder to amend or approve and amend the agenda as stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Steelgrave? Yes. Germaini?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is the consent agenda, and for item B, approval of payments to vendors, the amount should read $1,258,684.41, 1258684.41.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent agenda that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Councilman Lamore.
Yes, Your Honor. Item number 4129, please.
Other items on the consent agenda that council members wish to have pulled for, Councilman Felder.
Item number 4122.
I'm sorry, 41.
22.
Items that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion on the consent agenda. Seeing none, a motion regarding the consent agenda. Councilman Felder.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion that all items on the consent agenda not pulled for further discussion be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted.
Second.
Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Lamore, that all items on the consent agenda not pulled for further discussion be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Steelgrave? Yes. Germaini?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes.
The next item is presentations, communications, and public hearings. We have none this evening, so we'll move on to council action. Item 4055 is proposed ordinance 23-003, sign ordinance amendment.
Thank you. Manager Robinson.
Yeah, I'd like to have Mark bring the amendments that he has made to the sign ordinance for you guys to review.
Mark, welcome.
Good evening again, Mayor, City Council. Mark Cochran, Director of Economic and Community Development. So for a couple months now, as council is aware, we've been finalizing an update to the city sign ordinance. This used to be part of the zoning ordinance. Back in 2020, it was pulled out of the zoning ordinance, and now it's a standalone ordinance. On May 15th, we gave a presentation of the draft ordinance to City Council. The first public hearing was held on June 5th, and this evening, we're recommending that we proceed with the second reading as well as adoption, based on feedback we received. So you may recall at the May 15th City Council meeting, Mayor Clark, you had a couple of concerns that we have addressed. So in your agenda packet tonight is a previous version. An updated one just came in on Friday that we're asking to move forward actually for adoption this evening. And there were only two minor changes to what was in the packet and originally presented to you. The first is in section 3.01 exempt signs. We updated this. This is for home occupation signs. The language was updated to match the zoning ordinance that says that a maximum of one sign per property. That's the only addition that was made. Previously, there was not a limit on the signs, only the size. So a maximum of one size per property, not to exceed 4 square feet in area. So that was one update we're asking you to add into tonight's draft. And the second one is section 3.03, prohibited signs. The only language to this one as well, just like home occupations, is permitting only one mural sign per property, not to exceed 9 square feet. We had part of this discussion back in May, and given some of the feedback, we went through and looked at the entire ordinance to look to see if there was a limit included everywhere. All of the remaining sign types already have in section 8 specific sign requirements limiting the number. So didn't get any other feedback over the past month, and so we're with those two amendments asking City Council to move forward with the adoption of the revised ordinance.
So Mark, if you could, the first one you stated, the section again, please?
Yes, 3.01,
And the second one was?
3.03.
Questions from council for Mr. Cochran? I'm going to take a second here, see if there's any, make sure there's no comments. Councilman Lamore?
Motion, Your Honor, to place ordinance 23-003, an ordinance to amend chapter 580 signage on the floor for its final reading.
Motion by Councilman Moore, supported by Councilwoman Stilgrave on item 4055, proposed ordinance 23-003, the sign ordinance amendment. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Stilgrave?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes.
Ordinance number 23-003, Chapter 580 signage, an ordinance to amend Chapter 580 signage ordinance of the City of Monroe, of the Code of the City of Monroe. The City of Monroe ordains.
Shall this ordinance pass?
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Stilgrave?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is item 4123, proposed lease and purchase option agreement for 212 East Front Street.
Manager Robinson.
Yes,
updates?
Your Honor. With that, with this purchase option agreement for 212 East Front Street, we are looking to move to approve the proposed lease agreement and the proposed option agreement with the Opportunity Fund, and authorizing myself in consultation with the city attorney to be able to make minor modifications within my purchasing policy and authority as may be deemed necessary or appropriate. I know that Mr. Cochran has worked real hard on this property. I know this property has been up for debate for quite a while, and I believe that you've been given the background and the offers in this lease agreement. And I think if you have any questions, I think Mr. Cochran would be able to explain the thought processes and the reasons for the amounts, et cetera.
Mr. Cochran?
Good evening again. So as City Manager Robinson indicated, this property the city bought 2 years ago from First Merchants Bank. This is the former bank operations building. We've been in discussions and trying to look at what it's going to take to redevelop the site. The city had conducted some environmental due diligence on the site, uncovered some past uses that gave us pause for concern. However, we also, throughout the time since purchasing it, have tried to find working with folks who may be interested in leasing the property or purchasing the property from the city. W&R Opportunity Fund approached us about wanting to open an office in the city, as well as invest in the downtown. We talked to them about some sites that the city had placed priority on, sites that we had purchased. Obviously, this was one. The city buys properties for the purposes of facilitating redevelopment, not with the desire to hang on to them long term. And so the lessee, Weens and Roth, and their Opportunity Fund want to open an office in the downtown, as well as work with the city to try and find a tenant to occupy the remainder of the building. So they don't need the full square footage of the building. It's just over 11,000 square feet. And so what they're asking is to go down a path together to look for another tenant who can add value to the community, add value to the downtown. We have had some discussions with possible other tenants that I think would be exciting additions to the downtown. Not able to speak to those right now, as we're still in discussions with them. But City Council may recall we bought the entire property, particularly with a keen interest in the vacant parking lot between the building and the County Register of Deeds office. Purchasing this site and that parking lot is also going to help facilitate the redevelopment of the former fire station site. That includes the county parking lot, mitigating the loss of that parking lot with the addition of this new public parking lot. And we found it kind of funny, within a week of purchasing the building and opening that for public parking, all the county employees started parking there because it's closer. And so we are separating out. This lease is only for the building and the immediate parking next to it. If you remember, there's a drive aisle that connects Scott and Macomb. Anything south of that would remain city publicly owned parking. Anything north of that, a small parking lot next to the building, as well as a parking space or a parking lot with, I think, 10 spots at the corner of East Front and Scott Street would also go with the building for this lease. So looking at the value of the lease, it's a 12-month lease. It is for $1 a month, partly because the business that wants to lease it is going to take on the capital improvements necessary to renovate the building, as well as any environmental costs that are associated with repurposing and reusing the site. There is an option to extend that for an additional 12 months. There is a security deposit section in the lease that we will fill in. That dollar amount has not been settled on yet. The lessee has the right to install signs and make improvements with our prior written approval. The lessee has the responsible for maintaining and operating the systems in the building in good condition, including plumbing, electrical, HVAC, snow removal, sidewalk maintenance. They are responsible for paying the taxes once those become assessed July 1, 2024. Right now, because it was vacant and city-owned, at the end of the tax year, there is no tax assessment, so there's no taxes due for the year. But once they are, the lessee will be responsible for paying those. And then they do have the ability to sublease with the city's approval. So those are the terms of the lease agreement. But also, you'll notice there's also an option agreement giving them the right to purchase the property within a year as well. That is for $5,000. That's pretty standard for an option agreement of this size. They pay the $5,000 up front. It is non-refundable, but if they choose to exercise that option, it would go toward the overall purchase price of $275,000. The way that we came to that, we took the city's purchase of the entire property, reduced it by the value of the parking lot, as well as consideration of some of the environmental items that had come up in the due diligence, and the fact that the lessee is going to take on those necessary costs. The option costs, again, will be applied to the purchase price, but not refunded if they choose not to execute the option. And then that is the terms of the option agreement. So happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for the review, Mark. I know within our fact sheet, a lot of the information the council's received, but obviously for those present, those watching, gives them additional information if they've not gone in to see that, so I appreciate that. I guess okay, I'll just stop there. Comments, questions from council members regarding this item? Councilman Felder?
Yes. So for there's a 12-month agreement with a 12-year renewal option for the lease.
1 year renewal
With
option.
with a 1 year renewal, so potentially 2 years.
Yeah.
Gotcha. After that, if they still want to lease instead of own, will it be reassessed at market value?
That'll be a new agreement that would have to come before city council.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not, just say it's not continuing to roll forward. It will take some action in that time frame. Other questions, comments for Mr. Cochran? Councilman Lamore?
Let me understand this correctly. The first year is basically, there would be no taxes on the property, correct?
Correct.
Second year is when we would apply the taxes. So would they end up paying for the taxes for that, if they leased it that second year then?
Yes,
Am I correct
beginning
in saying
July 1, 2024.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, other questions or comments? If not, this item is up for the council's action. Councilman Lamore?
Yeah, Your Honor, I'll make a motion to approve the proposed lease agreement and proposed option agreement with Weens and Roth Opportunity Fund LLC to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the city and authorize the city manager in consultation with the city attorney and economic and community development director to make minor modifications within the city manager's purchasing authority as he may deem necessary or appropriate.
It's a motion by Councilman Moore, supported by Councilwoman Germania. Item 4123, the proposed lease and purchase option agreement regarding 212 East Front Street. Any final comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Yes. Steelgrave?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is item 4128, reschedule of July 3rd council meeting to July 5th.
That Monday happens to be right in the middle of the 4th of July weekend and in looking at that, I believe it may be advantageous not only for council members who may not be able to attend, but also for members of our community who may be traveling that weekend or out of town and unable to be able to come to the meeting and its agenda. During that weekend, and we're moving it 2 days, I think it would be reasonable to consider that option.
Comments, questions from council? I recall as we set the agenda for the year, it kind of stood out. We didn't really address it then, so it's here now, and for me, it's one or the other, and I'm not opposed. So it just, obviously, I think about the residents that may want it just for scheduling, that do attend and have an item that might be on that next agenda, and I think that they might disrupt their personal travels and then not have a voice, I think is the more so for me. So if there's nothing further, a motion, Councilwoman Germani.
I thoroughly agree with everyone, and I will make a motion to reschedule July 3rd meeting to July 5th. Move to reschedule the city council meeting originally scheduled for Monday, July 3rd to Wednesday, July 5th, with work session scheduled to begin at 6 p.m. and regular meeting to begin at 7:30 p.m.
Motion by Councilwoman Germain, supported by Councilwoman Selgrave on item 4128, rescheduling the July 3rd meeting to July 5th. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Yes. Steelgrave? Yes. Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
Next item is 4127, resolution to change the composition of the Retiree Healthcare Board of Trustees.
City Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, and the board, I was here for the discussion at the last meeting as a visitor, and it seemed to me as if this was, when there was questions about it, we still have to remember that no matter what the composition of that board may be, that you as the governing body have the ability to change at any point in time that you choose. But I think Dr. Everly has some information for you to be able to present on this, to explain it a little deeper.
Dr. Everly.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Dr. Julie Everly, the Director of Human Resources. So, as you know, we've been in ongoing conversation about the change to the Retiree Healthcare Board. And we've had multiple conversations over the last several months, although this has been something that has been studied by the administration for well over a year. Some points that I think are very helpful to consider as you move through your decision making on this item are this change would not at all change the pension board. So that's very critical to your consideration. Also, in that this change would not impact the benefits at all to our retirees. So their health care and everything that they've retired and count on for their health care remains intact. The resolution itself contains what we've been calling a backstop of funding. So the although the great decisions that have been made for many, many years on that board have led to an overfunding of that fund. So as we move forward, what's being suggested to you and recommended by the administration does not at all deplete that fund to even 100% funded. The lowest it would ever go is 110%. So it builds in a lot of reassurance for our retirees that they will always have what they've counted on. So as Manager Robinson has stated, it also is important to remember that you are you are ultimately responsible for that fund, and therefore you have the ability to seat board members. Based on your feedback from our last discussion, there has been some provisions that have been added around interim board members, if you ever would need that. So we wanted to make sure to be responsive to your feedback the last time we met. So with that in mind, I certainly can answer any other questions that you may have, but are very, very proud to bring this really before you because our retiree healthcare boards through time have done some really great work and have made good decisions as well as the decisions of council that have led us to this point this evening.
Thank you. Councilwoman Germaini, question.
Thank you, Your Honor. These are still bonded funds, correct? So they have the opportunity to grow more.
Absolutely. And we would expect that as the market continues to grow. We're all thinking very optimistically about the market, right?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councilman Lamore?
Just make a motion to adopt the resolution amending the trust agreement for the post-retirement healthcare fund and changing composition of the City of Monroe Retiree Healthcare Board of Trustees and appointing new trustees.
It's a motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilwoman Germaini on item 4127, resolution to change the composition of the Retiree Healthcare Board of Trustees. Before I take the rolls, any final comments or questions? Very well. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder? Yes. Whitman? Yes. Steelgrave? Yes. Germaini?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes.
All right, so the next item was pulled from the consent agenda. It's item 4129, resolution for approval of confidential non-union employment agreements.
Thank you. I'm looking at my notes here. Councilman Lamore, yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just wanted to get some clarification, maybe more than anything else. I looked at the hourly figures that were addressed in the notation. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of percentage, because it doesn't tell me where we started at, what kind of percentage of a raise, or is this status quo? What are we doing with these rates?
Beverly from Human Resources will answer that, but I believe this is a new employee.
4 employees.
Yep, that's correct. Thank you very much. We have 4 employees who have agreements here before you for consideration. And previously, with our non-union employees approved by council, you'll recall that former manager Pastu talked about a study that was conducted on those employee wages. So the wages that have been set here are directly in line with that study. So they have been recommended from Municipal Analytics. John Kaiser conducted the city study, and that's where these came from. So you'll note that there is, much like the other non-union employees, their percentages of increase are very different. And it is important to note that we have one of these agreements is a new employee, Cassie McLeod. She actually had her first day today, along with our new city manager, Mr. Robinson. So she is a new employee, and also included is in working with Comia One, our payroll specialist is included in the bundle that you have for consideration. And so you have your payroll specialist and your benefits specialist that are aligned in their compensation.
Yes, I was just basically trying to, in a way, make a point to the sustainability more than anything else. We've gone through a lot of transition with employment wages, increasing their wages to make sure that we're competitive.
Absolutely.
And I understand that completely. Just want to make sure that in 5 years, we're still at the same point where we can sustain where we're at and make sure that we retain these employees and not have to let them go. That's my main thing. I understand it's, to be competitive, you have to pay the price. I understand that completely. But I also want to make sure that we as a city can sustain what we have. And that's always my utmost concern when we look at hiring new employees, or even taking the employees that we currently have and giving them another benefit in that sense. So I'm not trying to say that these employees are not worth what we're rewarding them with here. Just trying to make sure that we understand that we have we basically we have to make sure that we can do this, not just now, but 5 years from now. That's my main concern.
Just to speak to that, and I know Mr. Sell is here this evening as well, and he may want to add comments as well. But the wage study and everything included in it, not only these wages, but also those other non-union wages, were a big part of our budget planning process that is extremely detailed and does project out 5 years. So I believe it's safe to say, and I'll look to Mr. Sell for a nod, but I believe it's safe to say that the wage study was accounted for in our budget planning.
I think he's coming up. So as Mr. Sell comes
think
up, I
he's
think about
coming.
how our non-union employees, our union employees, how we had that conversation when we came to our attention about how we had to get, I'll say, back in line where that is. And I think we've done that. And this is just the, I guess, the next step.
And I agree with you 100%.
You're right there. And
I
think
just want to,
yeah, absolutely.
if nothing else, just be double safe, because that's my biggest concern is just to say, boy, we've made some big hires. Want to make sure we're able to stay with them.
Mr. Sell.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and Council, Ed Sell, Assistant City Manager, Finance Director. I guess 2 points. As Julie said, we do a 5-year budget projection, and as part of the budget ordinance that you adopted this year, you did adopt the non-union wage scales for all all of these positions that are covered in here. They are listed in that schedule. So when we were putting together the budget and projecting these positions out 5 years, we were using those wage schedules. And so, yeah, if you were happy with the budget that was adopted, then these wage scales were in there, and we should be, if everything goes as planned, we should be all set. But we'll see how the next 5 years go. So.
Thank you. That's all I need to know.
There's other comments. I want to note on this one in particular because these are the confidential employees as well, and I think that's why they kind of packaged together in that fashion. What brings with the confidentiality, their duties and job descriptions, I think, which is obviously as Councilman Moore stated as well. Dr. Evelyn?
I think that these agreements in front of you also reflect a lot of longevity and loyalty to our city, and I know that council's always so wonderful in recognizing that. So I believe that's all I have this evening, but happy to answer any questions.
If there's no further questions, Councilman Moore?
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution approving employment agreements for confidential, non-exempt, non-union employees.
Motion by Councilman Moore, supported by Councilwoman Stillgrave on item 4129, the resolution for approval of confidential non-union employment agreements. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder? Yes. Whitman? Yes. Stillgrave? Yes. Germaine? Yes. Lamore? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Clerk, next item.
The next item was also on the consent agenda, and it was pulled. It's item 4122, the 2022-23 budget amendment.
Councilman Felder.
Yes, thank you, sir. I just had a couple of questions on this item before we move forward.
Sure.
This is an end of fiscal year reconciliation, mostly, is my reading of this, where I believe in the fact sheet, it was talking about how we couldn't leave these funds with overages left in the account, and that's legal. That's state legal compliance. We have to make them whole before proceeding on to the next fiscal year. So most of this is just administrative. We're not actually making additional expenditures in terms of last minute or unbudgeted items. That's my understanding.
Well, as I read it, and I see Mr. Sell, the city manager obviously has reviewed it as well, and I know this is a
We finally got him up out of his seat.
Mr. Sell, because I think as I looked at it and I read through it, I kind of read this. There might be some additional. If there is, we want to hear from Mr. Sell. Thank you.
Hello again, everybody. So what you said at first there is the primary reason this is done is that, with a governmental fund like in the city, it's a violation of state law if we were to overspend what's called the legal level of budget adoption. And when you adopt the budget, you adopt it at the department level. So our main goal is that each department is under budget at the end of the fiscal year. There is some ability for the city manager and the finance director to move funds around after the fiscal year end. So if I was to look at the budget and say, this department might be over budget, but in total we're going to be over 200,000. We're going to be under budget by 200,000. Then I usually don't worry about that because that's something that we can do on our own and just balance the budget out. But in this case, there looked like there were a couple areas where if we didn't amend them, we might go over budget. So that's the main reason for doing this. The other reason for doing it is that we did get a good surprise in May. Every May we get our second personal property tax reimbursement payment. And we never know what it's going to be. So when we're budgeting, we're sort of guessing at what it is. And this year it was about $200,000 more than what we had budgeted to receive. So it budgets to transfer a majority of those funds to the capital projects fund, not to assign it to any specific capital costs, but to put it there so that it can be used on capital projects in the future. So
that was a follow-up question that I had is we have 156 going into capital projects without any specific project that it's going to be assigned to. And you're saying this is just a corner that we're putting the money in because the overage that we received unexpectedly from the state.
Right. I mean, we may get to a point where project A we have so much money budgeted, but it bid at $100,000 more than that, so we may tap that money for at that point. But if we don't use it for something like that, then it would be rolled into the funds that are available next year when we're doing capital budget planning.
Other questions? As I look at this with the amount that was stated that Mr. Sells as the surprise or additional funds unexpected, most of these then was, besides the capital improvements, is reallocating some of these and increases to where they may be in need. It wasn't lost to me the fact there was a decrease, but that wasn't a bad thing either, because it come from really through the clerk's office, as I read through, is tax chargebacks were less than anticipated. So you have to balance that within the realm of it as well. So, as Councilman Felder, you're right. All these are make sure it's placed in the right position as we close the budget out.
Okay.
Councilman Felder?
That said, I move to approve the budget amendments described above that would increase the general fund revenue and expenditures by $210,247.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Lamore, on item 4122, the 2022-23 budget amendment as proposed. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Stillgrave? Jermaine? Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
I have no further items this evening, Your Honor.
Very well. This is still June, so.
Till June.
Councilman Felder, comments this evening?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Juneteenth holiday. It's the first holiday that City of Monroe employees have had Juneteenth off. I hope everyone was able to enjoy the day. And everyone was able to get out to some of the festivities that happened both this weekend and last weekend in downtown Monroe. Regarding our art policy, I think it's wonderful to see this in motion. I've been working with some community organizations to get the ball rolling on this, and I certainly want to see us be more inclusive regarding things like this and things that we want to see and hear and experience in the future. Whether or not we expand this policy to encompass those things or just tackle this in pieces, I'm sort of open to all options, but there's a way to yes here. The passage of the sign ordinance, finally, I think that it's probably better than what we have. I still am of the opinion that parts of it are overly restrictive, but I'm looking to the businesses throughout the community. Help us, let us know what we need to change, and I hope that we will look favorably upon working with businesses to legitimately meet their operating needs. In speaking with administration on this item, I think that it was, let's get something out there and see what needs to be changed after the fact from the community, but it's better than what we have now, and I think that's probably the case this evening.
Thanks, Councilwoman Whitman.
The only comments that I have are, I would like to welcome our new city manager. And there's not a doubt in my mind that we are first on Vince's mind tonight as he's enjoying his retirement. So
Maybe he's watching, I don't know.
he could, he
I doubt it.
probably is.
Go ahead, Councilwoman, I'm sorry.
That's all right. But that's my only comments.
Thank you. Councilwoman Stillgrave.
I would also like to welcome Mr. Robinson and looking forward to the years ahead. Also, everybody have a happy 4th of July, and remember there are fireworks going to be going on at State Park on July 3rd, and just be safe. That's all I have.
Very good. Councilwoman Germaine.
Thank you, Your Honor. With the 4th of July coming, please be mindful of pets because they don't all like fireworks and they're very noisy and they get scared. But welcome to our new city manager as well. I had the pleasure of celebrating with Gloria back there. St. Joseph's celebrated their 100-year anniversary. If they were still a parish, they would have 100 years. St. John's, 150 years. I had no idea. That is amazing to me. And I love the latest artwork on First Street and Monroe Street. It's beautiful. Colors are great. That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilman Lamore.
Thank you, Your Honor. Welcome as well to our city manager. I told our public safety director I wasn't going to mention it, but I think it's probably a good idea that I do. Our crosswalks are being ignored at all of them on Elm Avenue by all the drivers. you know, I've made a special point of really paying attention to where our crosswalks are at. And remember, especially this time of year with summer, parks across the street, who's going to be using these crosswalks are the kids, kids in the neighborhoods. So I think it's tremendously important that people start paying attention. And if they don't, then obviously we're going to direct our public safety director to make sure that they are directed. Also, as well, want to reiterate, and I just asked our public safety director this tonight, we do have a noise ordinance, and I've had a lot of complaints by a lot of our constituents saying that there's a lot of vehicles drag racing on the streets, revving their engines, racing around. You know, we're making note of it, and I think that our public safety department's going to do a pretty good job of cleaning this up. And I just want to let you know your voices are heard, and we are just as disgusted as everybody else out there when people just basically break the law. So just wanted to let that be known that we are trying our best to get things better in the city of Monroe. And with that being said, with the noise ordinance, please be considerate of your neighbors during the July 4th holiday, not just July 4th, but the days before and after. Remember that they have lives too, and they have to live in peace as well. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. So I'll start as a follow-up with Councilman Lamore because today, one of the items that council approved, it's been almost a year in the works, is a survey that was put out regarding pedestrian education survey and how do we get there. And that was actually today's meeting. And one of the items that seeing the surveys of the community that responded, you know, the questions were to understand where we currently are and see how we put together an educational campaign as a city, and it's going to be over the next year and a half to two. So one of the items that was on that discussed on that, and hopefully we can get this to roll forward to the council as well, was what's the rights regarding a crosswalk? If it's a marked crosswalk and there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk, does a vehicle have to stop? I think that one's pretty easy. The answer is yes, they have to stop. But if they're not in the crosswalk, does the vehicle have to stop? So it's the difference between if we follow what is the state law or if you pass an ordinance. Some communities have passed the ordinance that if you're at the edge, the vehicles must stop. If you're not in the intersection, as a state law, you don't have to stop. So I think it's that how do you make it safe is what we're talking about. The other is a marked crosswalk is marked in an unmarked crosswalk, and a person's crossing, does a vehicle have to stop? And the answer is yes. But surprisingly, it wasn't a majority, but many said no on the survey. So there's definitely an educational issue here. And there's much more to that with data and how it's interesting to see by all different demographics of what the responses were. So we'll see that gets passed out because and public safety has it as well, but how we manage that and how we send out an educational campaign. So that wasn't on my list to start, but I thought it was very timely when your comments that was just today that we received that data. And they're going to start this campaign and work together as the marketing group. So an item, we had our work session today, a lot of talk about murals in downtown and festivities and art and, from the DDA to the DMBN to individual groups as well. But one of the items that just started here within the city of Monroe through the parks is, we have our concert in the parks, which again is this week, next week, and through the summer. They also started a new that's going to start here on June 23rd, this Friday. It's called Finally Friday. And it'll be live music at Altrusa Park. And the idea that's also the Friday that, you have the other businesses that are staying open at times. So there's only 4 dates. This is kind of a start trial period. June 23rd, July 28th, August 25th, and September 22nd. I know nobody's going to remember all those dates, but I want you to know that they're on the city's website and can be available through our social media as well. I want to give a congratulations to Brian Egan, who serves on various boards and commissions for us. So he works for the Henry Ford, but he was appointed to the Michigan Historical Commission by the governor in the state of Michigan. Mr. Egan currently chairs that committee, and he also serves on our Commission on the Environment. He serves on our Heritage Quarter Commission. He chairs that as well as chairing the Commission on Environment. Somehow he does work, and he's very, very busy at work, but here he serves on many boards and commissions, not only locally, but at a state level. So we should be thankful to Mr. Egan for his commitment to service to not only our community, but the state, being a resident, and he's a great value for what we do on boards and commissions. I have this, and it came out of the county, but it comes out of the health department, but it's about recycling, and it talks about collections, and they have a passenger vehicle tile recycling program available. So please go to their site and see what all the information they have there. But the collections will be held the last Wednesday of each month from April to July at the Monroe County Drain Commissioner. We talked about blight earlier, and as we all drive, and as you may drive, and you see stacks of tires that might be in a driveway, it's blight. Maybe it's just because they don't know what to do with them, and maybe they're just not going to put them back in the car, but we don't want them in the ditches. We don't want them just put anywhere. So here's the opportunity. You just have to drive it out there. There is some limitations on how many. I'm not going to get into all the details, but what I've seen at some of the residents, the 2 or 3 or 4 is acceptable. So just drive them out to the Drain Commission, and it gets recycled, and we get some of the blight removed from the community. I don't think that I have one more thing. I want to also welcome our new city manager here, David Robinson, and it was our first day to kind of sit up on the second floor, and it was a very busy and robust day. I think we had 10 minutes to talk, and half of that was right before we came downstairs probably. We did sit in a meeting on the pedestrian education. He was a participant in that. His first 2 weeks are very full of many boards and commissions to get acclimated there. I know tomorrow's the Downtown Development Authority, and he'll be there and he has experience as a DDA director, so I think it's some great things that he brings to our different boards and commissions, but also his experience. So I'll stop there. It's a great first day, and we'll continue to work forward as together. Clerk Treasurer Lavoie.
It was a very robust day, I think, all the way around on every floor at City Hall. Just real quickly, a reminder that property taxes are due June 30th, which is a Friday. And the clerk's office is open every day from 8:30 to 4:30 to accept that. And we, of course, have the drop box as well, if you prefer to drop your check in the drop box, and that's checked several times a day. And there is a camera on it, so we've managed to maintain it, and everything has been very safe. So I want you to be rest assured, if you don't get here by 4:30 on the 30th, you can certainly drop it in the drop box. And then another item is that I recently, in conjunction with the Terry Davis with our IT and the communication office, launched a 6-question questionnaire regarding elections. There have been so many changes that we've all heard about with regard to elections, early voting, et cetera, and that's going to involve a lot of planning and making sure that I'm keeping within the rails of the budget and being mindful of our taxpayer dollars, but at the same time offering the services that the voters in the city of Monroe are looking for when they go to vote in '24, which will be a robust election year. I like that word. I'm going to use it a lot. So at any rate, so this is just kind of to get everyone thinking about it. There's a way to signal that you want some additional information. We're going to be doing some educational information for the voters, and also just what your voting habits are, and give you a chance to think about it and what you might be planning for next year, so we can put the right resources in the right places and make a positive experience, not just for our voters, but also for the election inspectors who will be working with us. So that launched, and that is available on our website, and we have some promotional materials out in the public to help you locate that if you need it. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you. You made a comment about surveys, and I think it's very appropriate. We talked about what was the survey reports that we had today. The clerks through the communications and IT has a 6-question survey. Your responses are valuable to how we plan and what we do and prepare for what your needs are. The survey, that the results that we were on, the city manager I was today, I think it was 439 or 467. I can't really, right? But it's mid 400s. That's a good survey return, and really interesting to see the demographics to it, like I said. So when you see those surveys come out, please take the time. It takes 3 minutes to 5 minutes because your input's valued, and we want to make sure that we're trying to meet what the needs are. So Yeah, 6 questions, only 6 on the website. Please do. Thank you. City Manager Robinson, comments?
Well, robust is the word of the day, but it definitely was that. I want to thank all of the directors and all of the personnel at City Hall. They were great to me today. Doing my best at remembering names. I now have more passwords and usernames than I know what to do with, and I can actually get into stuff. I just have no idea what to do once I'm in there, but so I'm going to take some tutorials from the experts in each one of these areas to walk me through there. But it's definitely been a very an excellent and exciting day, quite honestly. It's, to be able to come in here and experience a busy city council meeting day as your first day. I think, I am so glad that I took some time of my own to come here and see it first. So at least I wasn't totally unprepared for what had happened, and enough can't be said with the meetings that I've had with Vince, your former city manager, were very invaluable. And the meetings and your directors here taking time out of their days to meet with me before I came here to help me prepare for this. It's just, I'm pretty excited. I got to say, it's a great community and it's a great city, and I'm just excited to be part of it.
Thank you. Welcome again. So next is citizens' comments. If there's comments from those present here this evening, just make sure that you state your name, jurisdiction of residence. Be mindful of the rules of the chambers, which is 3 minutes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Hi, my name is Dean Patton. I live at 20 West Grove Street, and I'm in the 5th precinct. First of all, I want to say thank you all for letting me speak, and thank you, Mayor Robert Clark, for briefly talking to me on the phone. And it was your kind of inspiration that got me to where I'm at today. What I did is I came here before, and I'm trying to make Grove Street no parking because the cars that park there are causing backups. They're impeding the flow of traffic. And I've seen many times where 4 cars had to pull over to the side behind the parked car because one car was coming this way to flow by. But the mayor, and thank you again, Mayor Robert Clark, he told me that I cannot do this alone. I have to get other people in the general area in the community. So I walked just 4 times, 4 different days, only 1 hour a day on St. Mary's, Borges, and only from Victor to the end on Godfrey. And between all those houses, I knocked on the door. I told them just like I told you, because I know these are the people that are getting in the black, that are being impeded. These are the people that are having to pull over the side. I see it because it's out in front of my house, but they're the actual drivers. So between these 4 times, 1 hour a day, I got 69 signatures that they agree with me that there is a impediment and there is a backup that they don't think should be there. I'm losing my words now. Mayor, do you want this list?
If you have something you want to share with the council, just give it to the clerk, please.
Okay, now
If you want it back, she'll make copies and send it back to you.
I got a copy.
Okay, continue, please.
I've sent everybody here a flyer that I had been given to the people. You got the same flyer that they got, and I pretty much said the same thing I'm trying to say here. So I'm asking you again, if you will please consider my petition to look into if just that one area of Grove Street between St. Mary's and Monroe, just in front of my house to St. Mary's, where there's a parking allowed, be changed to no parking for the whole street. And the one other thing I added in the video I sent you, it shows a car that turns down St. Mary's and goes to Monroe Street. Now, I've watched many, many cars, and the average time is somewhere between 8 and 10 seconds for a car that's turning from Monroe going to St. Mary's or vice versa. So how fast can a car be going in 8 to 10 seconds? If 4 seconds you're in the middle of the street and then you're slowing down because the stop sign is there. Keep it in mind, my house is the only street on that block. I have a house on each side, but one is on St. Mary's and the other is on Monroe. But so you got 3 houses. So the length of 3 houses is not very much of a length for a car to speed up and go fast. So speeding, I don't think speeding is a problem. So Mr. Patrick Lewis, the engineer, told me that possibly it was in the 1960s when that street was paved and they put that sign up allowing parking there, and at that time, it was to keep traffic slowed down. But I'm saying that it's not that way. And I think the other residents, at least the ones that signed the petition, agree with me.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. So,
Any questions?
well, I don't have any questions. It's your opportunity to share this with us. I guess if there's next steps that you want to do, you might want to talk with the city manager because the council hasn't made any other motions. I think there's probably some, I'm getting into a discussion which we don't do during comment time, but I'll just simply say if there's when you first presented, there was other reasons, and now you've come with this reason as well. And just for me, I think it should be a process thing, but you can have conversation with the manager about what you might want to present or bring to the council in the future. Okay?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Okay, talk to the city manager before you leave, because if you have something you think should be presented, he can put that together and present council with it. Okay? Very good. He'll get your information and he'll make contact when it's appropriate. He can able to get back with you. Okay. Other comments? Yes. Please come forward. A name, please, and address of jurisdiction.
Yes, Mayor and Council, my name's Nancy Williams, and I am thrilled to learn that Altrusa Park is going to be utilized. I am an active member of Altrusa, and in 1990, City Council named that little gem along the Riverwalk for us because of all the things that we do in the community, and especially for the things we were doing in Loringer Square. And we're going strong. We were chartered in 1952, and I'll be sure that the members know that this is happening. I'm so excited. I didn't even know. I actually came here for another reason, and I wanted to express my concerns that I have about the garbage contract and the city policy. I live in a duplex. We put out 3 or 4 garbage cans each week, and we also put out a recycle bin that we share that we pretty much fill up. I became aware of the change and I wasn't aware of it until I saw these garbage cans being delivered to the homes all around me, and we weren't getting any. And finally, 4 days later, we got 1 bin. So I started calling, why, I need another bin and I need a recycle bin. And they said, well, first of all, the property owner has to request, and they have to pay the $120 for the garbage can. And as a rental, you won't be getting a recycle bin. So I tried to work through my my landlord, and they sent me a copy of the letter that you'd sent, that the city sent, that said that we could use our regular garbage cans until August 31st while the property owner decided what they wanted to do. And I said, well, Jim downstairs and I will pay the $120 if you would order that bin now, because we feel we need it. We can't put all of our recycles and all of our garbage into one of these containers. Well, they're going to let us, they're going to wait. And when I had asked, when I'd asked the city, what do I do with my old garbage cans that I don't use anymore once this process gets in place, they said, well, you place them in your recycle bin and they take them away. I don't think I'm going to have a recycle bin. So, as a voter and a volunteer in this community for a long time, I just wanted to make you aware of how this is affecting me, and I appreciate the opportunity to bring this issue to the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. I'll just make a quick comment. I know that there's some additional comments that the administration and city manager are taking. This is a start point. I think as we learn more and some of the questions, just as yours is, there may be space. I can't speak for the council because we've voted on something. I'm just telling you that we're taking the comments as they come in.
I appreciate it.
The recycle, for instance.
I appreciate it.
Okay. The concern with the recycle is that, some may not be as, I'll say, careful of what gets put in the bin. And that's where we started to lose, not making the percentage of good recycle. And if you put the wrong stuff in there, then we get dinged, and we have to then start to be charged more. So, well, but I appreciate you being here, and I know that there's conversation now. There'll be more conversation as we move through this, as we get it implemented. Since you brought it up, and I didn't put it in my comments, was waste management is still our current trash collection, and Stevens is the new, and they had to disseminate those new trash cans out. And we know there's an issue because people are putting their trash in the Stevens out to the curb, but Waste Management isn't going to empty them because they can't really do that. So we're just a reminder for those here, those who are watching, please use the Waste Management cans through the date stated, and they'll be taken away. And then we're all done, those containers will be taken away. I'm pausing because I'm thinking the date again. I know when Stevens will then start, but we'll make sure it's on the webpage. We sent information and cards to every resident, and it's on the webpage as well. Last thing on Altrusa Park, since you brought it up, there's really good things going on there, and we're really, Clerk Lavoie and others that sit on a committee for our holiday tree lighting. We have something special for Altrusa Park, and I'll let you know about that. Other comments from those present here? I'll start in the back, and then I'll come forward. Yes, sir, in the back.
Kent Ritter. I live on Cass Street. Mayor Clark, members of council, as previously stated, my name is Kent Ritter. In addition to being a citizen here in Monroe, I also serve as the lead pastor at Solid Rock Church of Monroe on Wadsworth. My comments tonight will simply be as my role as a citizen, but I rise tonight to support the city's current protocols regarding the flags that fly here at City Hall. The American flag that flies represents all Americans, Michiganders, and citizens of Monroe. And when we pledge allegiance to the flag, it's one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Its inclusiveness is self-evident. It's my understanding that requests have been made of the city to fly flags in addition to the American flag, a special flag that parses out a group of people, specifically those that identify as LGBTQ, that feel they're not adequately represented solely by the American flag. It's my contention that the American flag that flies at City Hall is for all citizens and requires no further embellishment. Many people choose to fly their own colors or additional colors at the churches, businesses, homes, and I'm thankful for the right of citizens to freely express themselves as they see fit. I believe that right comes from God and is enshrined in the Constitution. However, I do not have the right to force someone to display an expression that's contrary to their deeply held beliefs. That's compelled speech. The council has already heard requests compelling it to comply. Namely, we will keep coming back until we get a yes. And I just wanted to stop by tonight to let council know that there's also support within the community for maintaining the current protocols regarding the flag. Also, it's my understanding that there will be gathering at St. Mary's Park this weekend by the LGBT community. Again, there is a right to assemble, of course. However, the right to be indecent in public does not exist. And we've already seen a precedent across the nation of indecency from groups, particularly gathering at the White House, but bearing their chest for a photo op. And now we have the promise, as stated, of drag shows happening at St. Mary's Park on Saturday. Some may not find a drag show to be indecent, but I would ask members of council to solicit their constituents on feedback regarding that topic. Do we feel like drag shows are inappropriate in a public family setting where children will be in attendance? Not only this, do we feel like drag shows specifically tailored for children are appropriate? My answer to that, of course, is no. I believe it's indecent and immoral. This community is filled with salt of the earth people. This is a family community. And my request is simply that this event be monitored for any indecent behavior and, if necessary, take appropriate actions to mitigate harm to any children involved. I appreciate the time of council, and I welcome your feedback.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Next comment, please. Yes, please step forward, sir. Your name again, please, and jurisdictional residence and
again,
comments.
Your Honor and Council. William Asper. I'm a landlord in the 3rd Precinct. So I'm reinforcing what this woman said about the sanitation issue. This is a problem pertaining to the multifamily properties. So last week I received a call from a tenant. We only have one bin. I brought it to my side. The other guy doesn't have it. This isn't a problem because, I called engineering. Engineering said one bin per residence. Well, multifamily property is more than one residence. A residence is where someone lives. So if it's multifamily is 2 to 4 units, you should have 2 to 4 bins. And this is how other municipalities do this as well. I'm going to say Westland because that's where a lot of my places are. There's an issue which I spoke to with Ms. Vining about. The trucks a lot of times damage the bins or they are stolen. They're stolen by other residents. So what is to happen about that? If it's damaged or stolen, does that mean the property owner pays for a bin again? Or do you guys replace it for free? The other thing was, I pay my taxes. The sanitation is part of the taxes. The millage is there. If I'm only having one family getting a bin, the service isn't being provided equally. So I'm getting less service for the same amount of taxes I'm paying. I feel that it's an unintentional prejudice against multifamily property owners. So a lot of people think 96 gallons is enough. Well, one family can produce more trash, and again, it's up to 4 families for residential. So, during move-outs or move-ins, there's a lot of trash that accumulates. One family can fill that up. Does that mean the other 3 are SOL? Sorry, that was rude. Are out of luck? It's just not fair to the other family members. So I ask the council take a look at this again and allow every family to have a bin. I know it's going to be more costly, but at the end, that's what's fair. That's what's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from those present? Yes, sir. Name, please, jurisdiction, residence, and your comments. 3 minutes.
Thank you. Devin Rucker, City of Monroe. First and foremost, happy Father's Day to all the city admin. Hope you guys had a fantastic Father's Day. I want to welcome Mr. Robinson to the city manager position. This past weekend was the Juneteenth at MCOP and over at Montague Park. Both fantastic events. I know some of you guys made it out there as well. I'm going to echo these 2 people. Lots of confusion on what to do with the trash. For me, we'll wait and see. I think I have seen a few postings on social media. And for me, watching council meetings, I was aware of the changes, but there's a lot of people out there that don't know what to do. My recommendation would be the communications department maybe make a video informing the residents about the new changes. As well to that, thank you, Mr. Lamore, for bringing up the crosswalks. If you ask my wife, I'm the unofficial crosswalk police. I'll be the guy that just waits for somebody to let the kids go because it happens that quick. Not letting somebody go could take a life. So I would echo my request for the communications department as well to maybe do a PSA on crosswalks and just the do's and don'ts. Actually, the reason that I'm here tonight, I work for the Monroe County Sports Network, but these are just things that came up as I was sitting back there. I want to personally invite you guys, the Southeast Michigan Red Storm, which used to be the Timberwolves. Some of you may remember them. They're back in action, ran by a local Monroe High grad. We play right here at Navarre Field. I'm your voice of your Southeast Michigan Red Storm. It's a blast. These guys from all around the county and even into Toledo, they are strapping up the pads. I hope they all have insurance. But they're putting it on their lives on the line for us right here at Navarre Field. June 1st is their next game. I would invite you guys all to come check it out. It's a lot of fun. Getting to be the voice is really, really cool. And then getting to see the kids watch their dads play is an awesome thing. Last but not least, the Monroe County All-Star Game is back. That's for seniors of all of the 14 schools, I believe, in the surrounding area from Carlson all the way to Whiteford. That is this Friday. That'll be at 6 p.m. at Mason High School. Come on out. These guys, this may be their last chance, unless you're watching and want to play for the Red Storm, to strap on the plaids and play against their friends and even opponents from other schools. I highly, highly recommend. It's going to be an awesome event. Thank you, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you for your comments. Other comments from those present here this evening? Any final comments from those present? Seeing none, we have still work to do. Councilman Lamore.
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of labor negotiations.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilwoman Jermaine to go into executive closed session for labor negotiations. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Steelgrave? Yes. Jermaine? Yes. Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes.